Alive. It's alive. It is alive. Hello, welcome. Welcome to the Streaming Evilive Show. I'm your host, Jeffrey Murdergram. Yeah, that's right. We're just gonna launch right into it. We're not gonna wait around. We have our guest waiting in the wings. So we're gonna jam on into it. I'm gonna actually start the show. Oh no. No. Oh no. Jeff, shut up. Shut up, Jeff. No. Jeff, shut up. I forgot to turn down my volume. Sorry about that. All right, let's start the show properly, and then we're going to bring our guest in. We start our show a very particular way here, and we're going to do that right about now, because that
Jeff is gonna talk about the Misfits right now. He's a nerd about this stuff, obsessed anyhow. Jeff never shuts his face, always needs to talk. Might be some weight if he went out for a walk. Do you think Danzig cares? He doesn't care. He's not into ranch.
Okay. Now that we've properly started the show, now that I have the Diet Double Fudge Polar Seltzer soda in my tumbler, choked with ice, of course. Woo, there it is. I don't need to bury the lead. We know who's here. We know who's here. We have Maurice hanging out, Devilman himself, the MC of all things Danzig, Samhain, and Misfits via the interwebs. I'm just going to bring him in. Let's just bring him in. Let's light this firecracker. Maurice, where are you? Where are you, Maurice? Maurice. Whoa, there he is.
I'm lost. You found me.
I found you. Hey, buddy. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. I got to tell you something really quick.
Go ahead.
How in the hell did you come up with such a funny intro song? That is hilarious.
Okay, so it's funny because one day I was humming She, and then I was just like, I need an intro song. And then I started, you know what it was? Actually, it happened on the show, I think. I was goofing around. And then I just started doing, the intro, and it just came to me, and it's like, that's the theme song, and
it's it's very obnoxious, but it makes me laugh, which is a good thing.
It's a silly little ditty. A silly little ditty indeed. Welcome to my show. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Oh. It's good to be here. Doing well.
I'm so glad. I'm really, really glad we could do this. It's great to have you on. There's so many things I want to ask you. Really, what's fascinating about you, Maurice, is that you're part of the first wave of fandom after the bands, or I should say after the Misfits are no longer a band. Like you came into this through Samhain. Am I correct on that? Started with Samhain?
Something like that. You have it kind of right. I can go over that, if you want me to elaborate a little bit, but
sure, please.
But I think I don't know what you mean, but I guess first wave, or it's been a long time. I'll say. I think it all started when I was, into punk rocks, like in junior high school, and growing up in, at least where I grew up, a lot of my friends, we would skateboard if we were not by the beach, or we would go surfing. And what would go along with that at the time was listening to a lot of punk rock. And I was very privileged, I felt, to get into it when I did. But when I did, and that was the mid 80s, I would have to say that I was definitely late to it, because a lot of my friends' older brothers were already going to gigs and so forth. So for us, for at least my generation, we were getting into it. And I would always hang out at a record store called Neil's Records, which, interestingly enough, the guy who helped me get into record collecting at Neil's Records in Glendale in the mid 80s now runs, shoot, what is it? Is it? I don't know what it's called. I hope I'm not wrong on this, but I think it's called Vinyl Solution. No, something in Huntington Beach. I believe it's Vinyl Solution. But anyways, he runs that now. But I would go in there as a kid and just randomly look at covers of punk rock records, buy them. And I think my first one back then, as far as Danzig related, was Legacy of Brutality. And so I actually got into it through the Misfits, and then, bought some other records. But, back then, I would say that you only had a limited availability of certain records. I mean, it's not like, not like nowadays you can just go on the internet and, oh, that's what the songs sound like on the Bullet 7-inch. It wasn't that easy back then. But anyways, I did get into it through Misfits, and then later hanging out at Neil's Records, I bought Initium, which I didn't even know the Misfits and Initium were related, right? Because at that time, there was no Danzig Skull yet.
Right.
So I would basically collect as many Misfits records as I could. I would get into Samhain. It was cool, too, just really quick. And this kind of reminds me of you, Jeff, because I know you're so proud of your Initium vinyl.
Yes.
My Initium vinyl that I bought in the 80s was really cool. And again, it was just normal back then because I bought it and I opened it up and it has a really cool lyric sheet. And, I thought that was standard, but, eventually those stopped coming in them, right? But it had the original lyric sheet.
Wow.
But again, this was the, and, but again, this was the mid 80s, right? So you'd kind of expect it to be in there. It still wasn't like even the early 90s and so forth. But anyways, I would just collect all this vinyl, and it was interesting because I was getting so into the Misfits and so into Samhain, and I would, at that time, and it's weird because it seems like this is something that I would say now or someone as a fan now, but back then I would be trying to convince all my high school friends. It's like, Jesus Christ, listen to that voice. Does it get any better than that? And especially because when I first bought my first Walk Among Us, I hadn't heard those songs. And when I went to a record convention and I had like $60 in my pocket, and I said, you know what, screw this. I'm going to buy Walk Among Us, because the only way I had heard some of those songs was on Evil Live. And sure, they sound great live, but
right.
Once I played that on the turntable on Walk Among Us, I was pretty much blown away at, this guy's vocals. How could he, tell you he's, I killed a baby today and make it sound so melodic? You know what I mean? I was pretty blown away. And even hearing songs like All Hell Breaks Loose for the first time, that was surreal for me, hearing a studio version. And again, these days, anyone can do it so easily. Whether even 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, I guess when the box set, CDs were out, it was still easy. But prior to that, it was a challenge. So anyways, I came in through punk rock, Misfits, Samhain, and then I swore to myself, once this guy gets his new band, which eventually was called Danzig, I was going to hit every show I could. And, I've gone to I would have to say every single show in Southern California, but, obviously I've done some traveling as well. So I've seen the band through every phase as far as Danzig. I think I missed Samhain by, that much. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of background.
Well, now, what about at this time, where is like Plan 9 and like writing in or getting like correspondence or updates via the whatever semblance of the Fiend Club exists during the Samhain time? Because I know it's way different than what it was during the Misfits time after '83. Is that happening at all, or are you involved in that in any way?
Good question. I think I missed that slightly, because by the time I started getting into it, as far as I recall, Glenn wasn't doing Plan 9 anymore. He had probably just been signed to Deaf American. And it's interesting. I just looked at a video on YouTube the other day where it showed Rick Rubin's old office. And I'm like, son of a bitch, that's the old office that I walked into as a kid. That was as big as my living room on Sunset Boulevard. And I'm like, hey, do you have any promo stuff on this new Danzig stuff? And that one big poster that has Glenn like with that beast mask on, and he's on the cross, and it's just a huge poster. I think that poster is pretty rare now, but they gave me that, and they just gave me all these promo items, and it was pretty cool, especially being in LA back in the day. Even one time, in the 80s, I was driving around with my friend, and I was talking about Danzig, right? Of course. Back then, I was talking everyone's head off about Misfits, Danzig, and Samhain. Next thing I know, I'm like, son of a bitch, look over there. It's Glenn. And Glenn was walking along the sidewalk with Rick Rubin, and they went into some like I don't know, a sheep hide type of store, like where you could get your seats covered in like some pretty fancy upholstery and stuff. But anyways, I pulled over and I go, dude, Glenn, it's a pleasure to meet you. Back then, it wasn't so freaky, right? Because
that was the first time you met him.
No, actually, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Wow.
I had met him prior to that, but that was still the early 80s, like it was barely Danzig 1. But you could actually go up to him and talk to him versus now it's like it's a little bit different, because he's so popular. Everyone wants a piece of Glenn these days.
Right.
So
you were always kind of in the periphery. I mean, I think that's like just really interesting. I mean, you really got to see the history unfold from like sort of like the sidelines or whatever, and get closer and closer as time has passed. That's pretty profound when you think about it, just in the way that like you got to see all the different iterations and versions. And you actually coined something. I don't know. You said it I don't remember where you said it, but I thought it was also very profound. When we talk about this stuff in nerd, I mean, we just pour over it like nerds. I think it is a really good way to look at Danzig's progression as like it really is just an evolution of Glenn Danzig's songwriting, and whoever the personnel is sort of just changes with the evolution of the band, and that really it's just one long continuation. And I just think that's a really good way to look at it.
Of course, because it started as the Misfits, then it was called Samhain, and now it's called Danzig. And to your point, I'll be honest with you, I like the evolution of it. So anytime someone asks me, because I've been there from the beginning as far as Danzig, right? Every time Glenn puts out a new record, they're like, okay, it's not like what it was before. And even when Danzig 1 came out, I remember a lot of my friends were like, what is this? This is not Samhain 3. This is not even Samhain, really. Even though it kind of was, but in a different, produced a little bit differently, a little bit more, I guess, just more like AC/DC type of sound. But, I know friends of mine that have just left after Danzig 1. I think the only Danzig album where everyone at the time actually was, okay, this is kind of cool. And I could see that was Lucifuge, but then Danzig 3 came out and my friends go, oh no, forget this. And then Danzig 4, even worse, because they had Can't Speak on MTV and they just were not for that. And then it just goes on and on and on. So to me, I think it's funny, That's why the more people listen to the classic stuff, the more I listen to the new stuff. And that I'll always be that way. I've always preferred listening to what's in Glenn's head most recently. And why? Because it's evolved. I don't like to get stuck in, and I love the Misfits. I adore Samhain, but in my preference, I would love to see a Danzig tour just because, hey, like even in that one song, what is it? Pain in the World, Angel of Wisdom, see how it's grown. I just like to see progression, and I'm never going to deny the early stuff, but I like to see the evolution, and I like to play the new stuff more.
Firstly, I want to ask you, I ask this to a lot of people, but I want to ask you, I want to get your 2 cents. How do you describe Samhain? This is like an endless conundrum for me, trying to like understand like the best way to describe this music. I hate it when I feel like journalists get this wrong all the time when they're writing about, Samhain, or they're passing over Samhain. It's usually like Misfits, Danzig, and Samhain. It's just like, oh yeah. And then for 3 years he was doing this thing called Samhain, blah, 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 blah. And it's never like, they don't ever really touch on what it is because nobody really understands it. And like, if someone has never heard Samhain for the first time, how would you describe Samhain musically from what you know about this band?
I guess in my opinion, it would just be a little bit more of a paganistic survivalist type of view as far as just the music writing. And it kind of reminds me, at least at that time, and I believe, what do they call it? The Batcave bands, like a lot of like the, like Specimen, Bauhaus, those types of bands. Exactly. So, I don't think they were like that. I don't think they were like that, but kind of like scratching the surface around that type of genre while Glenn was still making it his own. I mean, those lyrics are pretty brutal. And then, you know, and not that I'm planning that you're going to ask me this, but I'm going to tell you, because a lot of people ask me, what mix do I like better with regards to, let's say, like, especially like Unholy Passion, like the old original mix or the new mix. And dude, by me, it's a no-brainer. I like the newer one. Why? Because I can hear Glenn, you know, a lot clearer, even though those lyrics were hard to decipher. But, you know, those, I like the newer mixes, I guess, from, I guess, what was it, the early 90s or whenever they were. Those are pretty damn clear when it came out on CD, and I love those, you know. But yeah, kind of like some, you know, kind of like the Batcave type of bands, almost like I'm not like a gothic type punk, you know. And the best thing about it was it's great when like you hear like a show like from Rock Hotel where Glenn will say, "You want to hear another fast one? Good, because we're going to play another slow one just because you know."
Right.
I just love going against the grain, and I guess that's how I kind of view just the way I view the legacy. The more someone likes the Misfits, the more I'll like Samhain. The more someone likes, you know, this era, you know. And right now, you know, I love the record collecting and so forth, but it's a little bit, I don't know, trendy right now. So I don't know. It's just a little bit. It's just different from how it was before.
Let me ask you this question: first of all, I mean the market has gone through the roof right now. I mean, it's just exploded. When I had Tanner on my show, who's an avid collector, and I said, Tanner, when, like, what happened? When did this all start? And he was like, look, when, you know, in 2016, when Riot Fest went down, and like, you know, there was the reunion that sort of, you know, made the market just sort of inflate like crazy, and it has not deflated since. I mean, it's only gotten crazier. I know you have seen some of the insanity that's been happening. I mean, it's just prices that will probably never be seen again are currently in fashion right now. It's kind of insane.
My opinion there is maybe I think three things have to do with it. Three of them. One of them being, you're right, the shows, of course. And I think it's fantastic that they're doing their shows. It definitely keeps the legacy alive. Definitely the shows. Also, a lot of publications that have come out that have been documenting this stuff, whether, you know, I guess most of them, I would have to say they're unofficial, but the fact that now it's documented, people are like, oh, I want that one. I want that variation. I want that you know, which I never got into too many variations. I like the color vinyl and stuff, but there's like, 20 versions of a black vinyl, you know? And I think the closest I got to was like the text labels. After that, and like first pressings and text labels. After that, it was more like, it's a nice to have, but I'm not going to seek them out. But anyways, so I think, the shows, the shows, also the fact that some of this stuff has been documented. And thirdly, I think the pandemic kind of has helped because no one could do anything, right? So they needed some type of outlet, and one of the best outlets, you know, and not only just for record collecting, but I've noticed that even in some of the Japanese toys I like to, not that I really collect, but that I was looking at, all of a sudden there's a huge interest, and it's, you know, a lot of it had to do during the pandemic. So that's just my humble opinion as to why a lot of it is. And of course, you know, at the end of the day, Jeff, the music is timeless. So I think it'll always stand the test of time.
It's kind of, you know, I didn't even consider that factor, the idea that the pandemic has led to a lot of people just sort of scrolling eBay, you know what I mean? Just sort of like looking around and just taking an interest in, you know, these assets. They're like, you know, it's funny, everybody's into like NFTs right now, and they're almost like analog NFTs because they're so rare, and, you know, everybody wants a piece of them, and I don't know, it's just insane. Now, here's another question I have for you. I also, this was another thing that I had asked a previous collector. Do you insure your collection because of just the value? Like, do you keep everything like, you know, aren't like, I don't know, like, how does that work? Like, how do you go about that?
That's a personal question, Jeff.
Gotcha.
I'm kidding. Oh. I'm kidding. You know, should I insure him? Sure. Do I? No, I don't. You know, but if someone wants to try to come get him, okay, too, because I'll be ready. But no, just like more like for accidental stuff and things of that nature. I think it's a good idea. Let's put it that way, for sure. I'm not going to discount anyone who does it. I think it's a great idea.
Right. Because I mean, it's gotta, I mean, how do you even like begin? It's just like you start because it's something that's really interesting. And then you get to a certain point where it's like you have, you know, you have like so much, or you're so into it that you got to keep it going. Like you can't stop. Like you got to just keep the engine moving, you know?
Well, I'm just glad I'm not younger because, yeah, I think I would be in big debt if I was still collecting. But yeah, I mean, it is a thrill, and especially, you know, being privileged enough to hang out with Glenn and stuff, going through some of his collection and just like being blown away at some of the stuff. And, you know, sometimes I would be there like, what's that hanging out in the corner there? And it was just like an uncut, like Evil Eye stand and just little things like that, you know. It's pretty surreal to look at some of that history and, you know, which Glenn doesn't, I don't think, well, I don't know. I never want to speak for Glenn, but it's more like he just has it there, you know, and it's to me, it's like, wow, it's like gold.
It's treasure to you. Right. It's treasure to you. Without revealing too much, would you say, are we still scratching the surface in terms of like things that would just blow our minds as to like what is still out there that's yet to be really like cataloged and sort of had a light shine on it? Or is it pretty much, you know, what you see is what is out there in terms of, because I remember one time you posted a picture of, I guess it was a bullet or maybe it was a horror business. It was something that was like hand colored that I was like, that blew my mind. Like, I didn't even know that existed. Like, I didn't even know that he was hand coloring certain records, and it was in some weird off color, you know, which is totally the collector mentality of Glenn of like, I'm going to do like 3 of these and make it like even rarer than it, you know, already is, you know?
Yeah. I think a lot of that stuff surfaced, I would say as far as vinyl collecting and stuff like that, I think and with social media, I think we're all a little bit spoiled now because I think for the most part, we've seen, I would say, unless I don't know, I could be wrong, but I would say we've seen at least 90 to 95% of it, if not all, you know.
Wow.
And a lot of that stuff, and a lot of that's, yeah, that's all I'll say as far as what I think, you know, because there's a lot of stuff out there, and especially in some of those publications, like some of that stuff we would never see if it wasn't for some of those things. So anyways, yeah, I think most of it we've seen. Now, I don't know, I'm sure there's a lot of potential audio and video out there, but, you know, that's a different story altogether, you know. But as far as actual vinyl collecting and so forth, yeah, I think we've seen most of it, I would imagine.
Right. That's pretty crazy. So tell me about how the 7th house really begins. What is the birth of the 7th house?
The 7th house, I think, started back in around 96, and that was like the infancy of the internet. And what was there lacking that would drive me crazy? It's like, I want to see fucking photos of the Misfits and Samhain. They didn't exist back then. It was very rare to see them. So that was I think that was one of the purposes, you know. And then at the same time, another thing is I wanted to promote Black Acid Devil, not many people were promoting it, right? And I'm like, fuck, man, I like this record. I want to expose it. And yeah, you know, I want to also share whatever rare photos there are because there's not many out there. So that started about around the mid 90s. And that's where I started having a lot of dialogue with Glenn. You know, the internet was new.
Right.
Also I think the other side of the Misfits was, you know, I guess getting back together. So I was like, you know what? I want to promote Glenn. I like Black Acid Devil, want to promote it. So I think that would be the hunger to, I guess, share and try to find more photos, which again, these days, much easier. But back then, different story. And the need to have an outlet for Danzig fans, like, you know, true Danzig fans that were going to stick around, you know, because to me it was, hey, I love all the past band members, all great, but at the end of the day, it's Glenn's songwriting. You know, whether they attach themselves to a past band member or a present one, it's Glenn's band. And, you know, and it's funny because it's people, you know, I guess for the most part with the 7th house, some people like, why did they remove this post or that post? It's like, hey, to me, I just try to take the emotion out of it. I just want to make sure that we go by what Glenn wants.
Totally.
It's nothing emotional, nothing like that. So it's just trying to keep the legacy going. And I think that's what's helped, make it the official fan site. It's great to get that acknowledgement from Glenn. And, I'm here to promote the legacy and keep it going.
Well, what's interesting is there were like a couple of
Hi, Steve.
sites back then. Yeah, Steve going blah 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 blah. Steve, but yeah, there were like a couple. You had a couple different sites back then, and Seventh House has been one of those constants from the beginning, or at least from the beginning of like the dawn of the internet. Because that's the other thing too is
from the beginning of time.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the beginning of. I don't know. It's the beginning of digital history. How about that? It's the beginning of digital history.
No, totally.
Because at the end of the day, you have fandom and the internet colliding in a crazy way where you can suddenly learn, like you don't have to be around the band. You don't have to know the band to learn everything about the band. And that's what that's how the internet changed the game. Now you have 1,001 Misfits Samhain Danzig nerds like me who's like, actually, who are just like, who want to, proclaim themselves experts and know this, that, and the other. But when in reality, really everything that they learn, they either learn from talking to other people or from what they read on the internet. And half of the time, some of that information isn't even true. So it's like, it's just kind of interesting how that changes. And it goes back to what you were telling me before about like, sort of discovering this stuff at a time where information is really, really hard to get, and you're seeing that. I mean, the skull is everywhere, right? You're seeing the skull all over the place. I'm thinking like the late 80s, early 90s. Some people know what the skull is connected to. Some people don't know what the skull is connected to, and then some people who are super in the know are putting together that, wait a minute, this dude from this band Danzig used to sing in this band, the Misfits. What? That's crazy. Holy crap. I did not know that. I always hear that story from time to time from people who just didn't put two and two together, The
one I always hear was, if it wasn't for Metallica, I would have never gotten into Danzig or the Misfits. So I think that's pretty funny. No, it's fine. That's a fair statement. But for me, it was the other way around. Should I have known about Metallica? And I knew of them, but I wasn't into them until, I got into Metallica because of Glenn, not the other way around.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I would chalk it up to cross-pollination. It just sort of goes, people that are really into metal or into Metallica, they see Metallica wearing these shirts, or vice versa. People are really into the Misfits and suddenly here's this band Metallica and they're covering Misfits songs. It's kind of like, what? Like this band who's really big right now is covering songs that I really, really love. Like that's really crazy to me, either which way, this side or that side. So you're really into Danzig Sings Elvis right now, because you said you were listening to the newest, latest stuff. You must have really appreciated that finally coming out, because it had been 30 years in the making, right? Been a long time coming.
I don't know. I'm not going to speak for Glenn, but it was as a fan, sure, it was great to hear. As a fan, and it's not. I love the album and so forth. Of course, I would love to. I can't wait to see Danzig Sings Elvis, let's say, with some live shows and so forth. So I think that would be a treat. I think especially because it would be more of an intimate setting.
Yeah.
And then to hear Glenn sing Elvis, it's funny because I think most Danzig fans get it, right? My first experience hearing one of those songs was what? I think we did one of those songs at Bordello's Halloween 1991 when he did an acoustic set. I think he did one night that night, which was great, So
right.
For me as a Danzig fan, it was almost expected that he would eventually do something like that, right? But it's funny because I've heard some other Danzig fans saying, this is nothing what I thought it was going to be or what have you. And a lot of people were totally surprised. But for me, it was just something that I guess, for lack of a better term, was overdue. But it was great to hear. But yeah, just really quick, that acoustic show from 1991, Halloween, dude, that was fantastic. I don't know if anyone was there, but that was pretty surreal to.
That was one night with you, right?
Yeah, well, that's when he played that song, but a whole bunch of other acoustic songs and stuff. But yeah, that was pretty surreal show because my friends I called the Danzig hotline that day because I was like, okay, we're in LA, let's call it, right?
Because that you have to explain for people who don't know. Some people will not know what the Danzig hotline is. Explain what the Danzig hotline is.
Good point. Back, I guess, before the
before time, before the digital history began.
Exactly before this all started. One of the ways to get a lot of the information was to call an area code 213 number, an LA number, to get the latest on Danzig happenings. So,
right.
I would always call. It was just cool to get updates and so forth about what was going on with the band. And naturally came Halloween, and I was like, I think they had mentioned, hey, make sure you call us on Halloween. There might be a special announcement. So naturally I called, and they said, hey, we're going to be here at this location tonight.
Amazing.
And I was like, what did I do? Immediately I called my friends. I'm like, hey guys, Danzig is playing Halloween night. We got to go. So of course we all get there, and we're expecting, I guess, similar to the Ricky Rackman shows. And that's another story I can go into, but they were just like small, intimate, live Danzig shows. So we all thought this was going to be, okay, Danzig's playing a small club live on Halloween. And so we're all waiting around. I think they waited till midnight, and we would hang out by the kitchen because you could see like these little see-through windows that you could see into the kitchen, and that's where the band was hanging out. And
wow,
when they got there and they waited till midnight, at midnight they came out on stage. All the lights were dark, and there was 4 like bar stools set up on the stage, and they came out with lit up jack-o'-lanterns and just put them like on the stage and sat on these stools and just went into an acoustic set. So that was pretty surreal. So that was one of the first times I heard that Elvis song. That's where I got to hear, Glenn do like Bo Diddley, Muddy Waters.
Just stripped down.
He did Killer Wolf, I'm the One, Heart of the Devil. That was pretty surreal to see that.
Out yet, right?
Well, that was Halloween '91, so
oh no,
I guess How the Gods Kill hadn't come out, even though he did Heart of the Devil,
Wow.
But yeah, that was another story where when they played Ricky Rackman's birthday party, I think the summer of 1990.
Yeah,
that was a different one where that was before Lucifuge came out, and that was another wild story. But that was a live set versus an acoustic set. The Ricky Rackman ones were pretty crazy because I remember that show. That was the first time. The first one I had heard "Long Way Back from Hell" and "Snakes of Christ."
Wow,
that was pretty surreal. And not only that, the band was
live band. That was live band. That was not acoustic.
That was live band. Yeah, that was live band, and there was no stage, so you were like right.
Wow.
It was like I can't imagine Danzig ever doing anything like that again. But this was right on the floor, and it was pretty surreal. That was pretty amazing to see. That was crazy. But that's when I was just a little kid, and those were like the metal days. So it's like I'm just looking at all these like, oh fuck, look at all these Kane AC people here. But it was rad, dude. It was pretty surreal. And after that show, Glenn asked my friend and I, because later, I think about a month later, they started the Long Way Back from Hell tour.
Yeah.
And he asked us, hey, what do you think of Soundgarden? And I was like, oh, they're a good band, So that was cool. So that's when he took Soundgarden out, right? I think Corrosion on that tour. So that was fun. Those Ricky Rackman parties were great. And hey, and again, that all ties back to calling that Danzig hotline back in the day. So it definitely served its purpose in a great way.
Yeah. Question: assuming that you remember, what was Chuck Biscuits playing? Was he playing like a drum kit during the acoustic thing or whatever, or was he tapping on like a wooden crate or something? Like, how did that work with
Chuck Biscuits was on a tambourine. No, I'm sorry. That was Erie. John and Chuck were both on acoustic guitars, from what I recall.
Chuck was playing acoustic guitar as well?
Yeah, which doesn't surprise me because didn't he play guitar on some of those Metallica sets with Glenn? Got hopped on a guitar. But as far as I recall, John and Chuck were on acoustic and Erie was on the tambourine. It was, and I know Erie was on all the way on the right and Glenn was on the other side, and in between you had Chuck and John.
Okay, you're kind of
all next to each other. All next to each other.
I'm sorry. Blowing my mind right. I said you're kind of blowing my mind right now because I had no idea that Chuck Biscuits A, played guitar, and B, that, you know, whatever Glenn had worked out, I'd be like, all right, Chuck, you're gonna play acoustic guitar over here next to John. Like, that's so weird to me. That's so crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
To touch back on Danzig Sings Elvis for a minute, this to me, and again, I know Glenn has said I might do more music in the future, I might not. He said something about that in that interview. If he never does make another new album ever again, which I would not want, I want him to always make music. But if that is the period, I think it is the best goddamn period that he possibly could have punctuated. It's perfect, man. I thought I would not like Danzig Sings Elvis because I was not, you know, there's things about the last couple albums I don't know, wasn't always my cup of tea. Danzig Sings Elvis was like phenomenal. It was flawless. And you want to know what's interesting? I feel like it was a very personal album. You know what I mean? Like there was something very personal about him covering those songs. Like it made me think like he's covering them for certain reasons. And if you listen, I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, but I almost feel like it's like he's showing us where some of his songs were influenced from. Like, you know, I'm trying to think of an example. I think Baby Let's Play House kind of is like similar or evocative of like American Nightmare. And there's a song that maybe it's You Were Always on My Mind that reminds me very much of Sistina's. You know what I mean? So it's like he's showing us his personal songbook from which, you know, because he's, you know, we know that Elvis is a big influence. And it's like, I don't know, it just feels like a very personal album. And I'm just I didn't think I would be a fan. I'm a huge fan of Danzig Sings Elvis. Loved it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I see what you're saying, like personal, and to me, it's very natural, you know, something that Glenn would do to cover. And the thing I like about it is that he's covering songs that people don't expect, and I like that. Just like when I share Danzig songs, just like in general, like when I share Danzig songs, sure, every now and then I'll include maybe a Dirty Black Summer or something. But you know, right, as a fan, I want to hear the other stuff. I want to hear, you know. If it was up to me, I'd love to hear Black Laden Crown live. Sure, I would love to hear Lucifuge live, but you know, there was a time for that, and I saw it. Would I like to see it again?
Right.
Fucking absolutely, and I can't wait for Psycho Fest. But
right,
I love the new stuff. I always like the new stuff. So yeah, every time I do Song of the Week or something, it's like in a song like Apocalypse, or a song like, you know, from Death Red Sabbath, or Black Laden Crown. I like to share those songs versus like the standard ones, you know. But
Death Red.
But yeah, I like how, just like I like how that's just like why I like the fact that Glenn selected songs that, you know, he liked, songs that weren't as popular on that Elvis record, you know.
Pocket Full of Rainbows, in my opinion. Okay, Pocket Full of Rainbows, and I think it's You Were Always on My Mind. I'm trying to think if maybe there's one other one. I think Pocket Full of Rainbows might be my favorite thing that he's recorded in the last 25 years. I love it that much.
Seems like a lot of people like it.
Dude, it is. I think it's so good. And you know what it is? I heard somebody reviewing it, and I really hated the way that they reviewed it. They said it was raw, and I think they just didn't understand how to verbalize what Glenn was doing. It's stripped down. It's minimalist. He's being very minimalist. He's not like packing it with sound. He's keeping it very simple, and he allows it to be a vehicle for his voice. And it's just, it's awesome, man. It's awesome. A+ for me when it comes to Danzig Sings Elvis.
I concur, and I hope to see those shows live. I think that'll be awesome.
Is that so first of all, before we talk about what's happening or what might be happening in the future, how do you come about these things in your groups? It's like all of a sudden it's like Misfits Monday and Samhain Saturday and yada yada yada. Where did this evolve out of? Did you come up with this, or how did that all start?
I think all of us did. I think we're just fans, and we just want to keep the legacy going, right? You know, so
right.
What rhymes with, you know? What better way to give homage to Samhain than Samhain Saturday and fucking Sunday? Right. When I told Glenn, like, hey, we're starting to do these things, he goes, good. You know, yeah. I think Samhain will always have a personal, you know, place in his heart. And, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm just being, I I side too much on the Samhain side. So I would love to see a lot of those things re-released, and I'd love to see another update box set with some shows.
Oh my God, yes, with like just multicolor. You know what's funny? You see what they're doing with you see what's their faces are doing with Walk Among Us, and I just keep thinking, oh my God, give me that, but with Samhain. That's what I want. I want give me like
you saw that April Fool's thing, right?
Yes, it like totally captured my imagination. I think that was John, Voice of Doom, who did that. John of Doom might have put that together. I'm not sure. Somebody did. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if John's listening or not. But it totally captured my imagination about what could be, what we could have in the future. So hopefully that does happen at some point, I'd
totally
love to see it.
And it's fantastic to be in always in good contact with Steve in London. I'm glad that they're still like part of the whole legacy, and are always they're in good communication with Glenn, which is fantastic. It's just part of the Danzig family, and I love it. And I love the new band. I don't want to say the new band. The latest lineup of the current lineup of Danzig has been it's been together a lot longer than any other lineup. So
long time.
Big kudos to Steve, to Tommy and Johnny. So I can't wait to see them at PsychoFest.
So explain to me what exactly is happening. They're doing the full album at PsychoFest. Are there any other shows currently lined up? Or are they like just dipping their toe in the water? What is, from what you know, or from what you can say, or from what is authorized to speak about?
The only thing that Glenn has shared with me thus far is Rockfest and PsychoFest. I know he had mentioned they may do a Danzig run, but I don't know if that's going to happen, because I know Tommy's going out on the road and so forth. But as far as I know, Rockfest and PsychoFest.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. And they're going to do. Weren't you the one who said like they've only played Girl, or some song was either Girl or Blood or Tears or something, like twice, or you've only heard it?
I don't know how many times they've ever played Girl, but the only time I ever got to see them play that live was at the Santa Monica Civic 1990, and that was like the first show of that. I don't know if it was called the Lucifuge Tour or the Long Way Back from Hell Tour, but yeah, it's funny how things work out, because I think that summer I was on vacation in Italy with my friend. Mm-hmm. And that tour hadn't even been announced yet. It got announced when I was in friggin' Italy, and I'm like, wow, dude, that'll suck if I miss this. And I landed. I got back from my trip. The tour started like a day later, and so I was like, wow, it was like fate, So I made that show. But yeah, that was the only show I had ever heard the song "Girl." I'm sure they did it other times, but that was the only experience I had.
Now there was a couple of you that used to always frequent shows. There was Tank, there was Jonathan. He was known as Jonathan Grimm back then. There was Elizabeth, right? There was Elizabeth, and you guys used to always frequent shows together, right? Like it was like kind of like you'd see each other.
EDB's awesome. Liz, we became good friends, back in the day before, the internet and everything. And we always kept in touch. Always. I think, she was probably the one I kept in touch with most as far as fans. And, we always wrote to each other and stuff. And I think it was at that time, 1995, by the time the 4P tour started. And I saw it out here at the Universal Amphitheater, and they played I Don't Mind the Pain, which was great because that was the first time I had heard it. And I was like, wow, fuck this. I want to go see it again. So I flew out to Florida, and I met EDB. She picked me up, and with a lot of her friends, and we drove to like 4 shows in Florida. And that was gnarly, dude, because I'm from California where it's fucking dry. I land in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida, which another surprise was, I was like, wow, this is not just Florida. This is like the deep South. So it was just really interesting. And I think they played, I don't even remember the venue, but anyways, I get off, just off the plane in Jacksonville, and I go and I instantly start sweating. I wasn't used to that. The humidity, you know what I mean?
Right,
so
right.
Anyways, that's, I remember, and I don't even know if EDB had air conditioning, but it was 4 of us crammed in a Toyota, and we were, as far as I recall, drenched in just sweat the whole time, traveling throughout Florida. But dude, check this out. That was what was a new band on the bill, you know, their first major tour. What's that band called? Korn. It was Korn, Marilyn Manson, and Danzig. So that was another pretty surreal experience.
People don't realize, I mean, you really have to think about, you know, before Blackest of the Black, where Danzig's trying to like push bands, you know, push bands that maybe might not be heard, you know, by a wider audience. He's trying to like bring, you know, elevate them. I mean, all throughout the 90s, he's breaking every single band that would go on to have this incredible mainstream success. He's like opening doors by putting these bands on his bill, taking them out, and then it's like, I mean, why weren't the record companies turning to Glenn and be like, Glenn, who's the next hit? Who's next? I mean, you got Soundgarden, Korn, Marilyn Manson. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about every band that sort of jumped on the Danzig tour wagon and then was literally breaking out right after. You know, it's like Glenn's like some sort of lucky rabbit's foot or whatever, like a thing, you know, like you rub it and then suddenly.
He's got good taste.
He's got good taste. Exactly. Kind of amazing. Speaking of good taste, Glenn definitely has good taste in horror films. And you can see he wears, when he's making films, he wears his influences on his sleeve. I don't think a lot of people understand that in the best way ever. Like, you know, if you know something about horror cinema and you're watching Glenn's work, you're like, oh, he's doing, you know, this is like Euro vampire films from the 70s or, you know, whatever, this kind of thing. And now he's doing this new movie that you have seen. You've seen Death Rider in the House of Vampires. What did you like? What are some of the thoughts that you could share with us about what are we in tune for, Devilman? Is it going to be like, is it going to blow our socks off? What's going on?
Settle down, Jeff. I'm just kidding. A couple of things, just really quick. Veronica. The one thing that I enjoyed about that, I look at the comic. Yeah. When I was reading the comic, it was that comic on film. So that was interesting. That was great to see Glenn actually be able to put his comics on cinema, on screen. So we had a great time on those premieres and all the different showings across the country. And I'm glad I owned the Blu-ray. So I thought that was a great premiere for Glenn. And then you're right. Most recently, I got to see Death Rider in the House of Vampires. And I think you guys are going to really, really like it.
Oh boy, I'm so excited.
You know, it's different in a sense that, you know, it's not a comic book, or maybe it is, you know, I don't know, but it's not like a comic book I'm familiar with that was on screen. What I noticed here, there was more budget, great actors, interesting. You know, it's great to see the storyline. And honestly, I think Glenn does great acting. I think he did really well. So I think the fans are really going to dig it. And the musical score he did on it, I think sounds great for it. So, you know, I hope he puts that out. But either way, regardless, I think the fans are really going to like this one. I can't wait to see it again. I keep telling Glenn that all the time. But I know that as soon as we have any, or that he lets me know of any word that it will be in theaters, I'm definitely going to share it with everybody. But
please,
you guys, I think people will really dig it, and you'll get a kick out of Glenn acting. It's great.
Holy crap!
That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
all I gotta say is that when I watched that trailer and I saw Glenn, like, you know, with blood like all over his face, and like smiling with like fangs, I got a real kick out of that, man. And you know, it kind of like it makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people want to see Glenn on the screen. It's like, why? Like it logically makes sense. And you know, I love that it's like, look, he just gave himself like a little side role. He's like, oh, I could play this part. I'll just do this part myself, you know, and just do this like little thing on the side. It's such a great selling point for the movie. It's a great marketing asset for the movie. And all of us are just going to get a kick out of seeing see him chew the scene when he comes on the screen and, you know, does his thing. So I think you know, it's an interesting idea. You know, there's definitely been vampire Westerns before, but I don't think there's ever been a movie where it's just everybody is a vampire. It's a vampire. Not been done. It's not been done before. So it's only something like that could come from the mind of Glenn Danzig. So it's like, and he's been trying to do this stuff forever. I mean, I remember reading interviews. He went back in the Samhain days, even in the Misfit days, he wanted to put out horror cassettes on Plan 9. He established a independent distribution system, and he's going to produce, horror, as he called them, horror cassettes, which were horror stories, and kind of sounded like maybe it would be like anthology type stuff, and just put it out like just through the Fiend Club, on VHS, which was kind of revolutionary for a guy from a band to like do something like that back then. No one was thinking of doing something like that,
It's good to see him do that stuff. I fully agree. So yeah, I can almost guarantee all the fans are going to dig this one. Definitely, don't expect a Veronica, because again, it's totally different.
Right.
And I think you guys will get a kick out of this. Just all the actors, great actors, a great storyline, and fuck yeah, it's great to see GD acting.
So tell me about this. So, you are an avid collector of photographs, and you have, I've seen some of your shots, and they are incredible. The Seventh House collection is a formidable collection. What came first when it comes to photographs? Your collecting photographs, or you love taking photographs and then you became a collector of photographs, or vice versa? How did that all start?
Probably vice versa,
Okay.
because photos, especially the Misfits and Samhain, were so rare and you couldn't get them. So I think just the love for rare photos, and then eventually asking Glenn, hey, can I shoot you, And it was cool because at the beginning he let me and stuff, and after a couple of years he's like, come on, man, you got to stop using flash. So that, that was just a whole different ball game altogether. But anyways, yeah, I think just collecting photos and then eventually getting into photography. But yeah, you're right.
What are some of the mechanics of that? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue with what you were saying.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say what are some of the mechanics of doing it? Like how, do you shoot things in burst mode? Like, do you take, and for those of you who don't know what burst mode is, it's like you or is that like cheating? Is that kind of like a bullshit kind of tactic? There's no sport to like using like a burst mode. A burst mode, for those of you who don't know, is where you can basically take a burst of photographs all at the same time and pick out the ones that kind of work best. I don't know anybody who's tried to ever take photographs. It's really freaking hard. Everything needs to be in the right kind of way, or else it's going to come out blurry. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into taking a photograph, at least manually,
And you bring up a good question. I think what really did it for me was shooting the Misfits in LA. And this was obviously after shooting for 20 years.
Right.
I asked Glenn, hey, how do you like these photos? Because he had just approved a whole bunch of Danzig ones from a recent tour. And he basically said, hey, you got to learn how to take photos. You got to take a photo class. And I was like a little bit shocked, but it just like put things into perspective. Like, I had to really work on composition. I wanted to shoot a lot more. So I think in 2019, that's probably the year I shot the most shows. And I think that was great advice from Glenn, first of all, number one. And two, that prepared me to, if I ever wanted to shoot the Misfits again, for example, I'd be ready this time. And so kind of going back to your question, like, hey, like, do you ever use like burst mode or whatever? I think now that I have some more experience, I think I feel a lot more confident going into, let's say, a photo pit. And, because usually you only get the first 2 or 3 songs from the pit. And I'll always have it in burst mode for concerts. But I think I can now be in a position where I can compose something, use the lighting there. And, if I have to use burst mode, I will. If I don't, I can always, snap a few or maybe one photo. But let's say you're shooting the Misfits, for example. Right. That's, first off, you got to get permission, right? Like, if you can even get permission. But you really can't, because, you either know Glenn or maybe, I don't know. Anyway, so you got to get permission. Secondly, with the Misfits, and Glenn's rule is always first 2 songs. So, with Danzig, sure, okay, I can pull that off. It's been rare where he's let me do 3 songs, and 3 songs on Danzig is like an hour. I was like, perfect. So
Wow.
2 songs to me is like 30 minutes. But now when you're talking Misfits, 2 songs, that's like a minute. I mean, that's literally like a minute because, you know, it's that those songs are so short. So the perfect example to really use burst mode. Yeah. When you're shooting, let's say like the Misfits, for example, because you want to get as many pictures as you can within that much time. So it really depends on who you're shooting, you know, but I always like to take advantage of the lighting, and I shoot Nikon. I won't shoot with anything else. I'm sure there's other great cameras, Leica, Canon, Sony's.
You use primes, or are you all about the zoom?
I use I use pretty much zoom for the most part.
You got it, right? I mean, it would be crazy to try and use prime. You need crazy telephoto lenses just to accomplish anything. It would be crazy.
Yeah, so I definitely use zoom primarily for like a shoot, like for a concert or even like the Misfits. For the most part, I use the 24-70 2.8, but definitely I always shoot Nikon.
Great lens, because you get it's
my
very
go-to.
versatile. Yeah, it's versatile. It's like, you know, you can get super wide, you can get super telephoto, and it's pretty fast because it opens up to 2.8. You know what I mean? And as you said, you're shooting in concert lighting. Glenn doesn't like the flash, so it's like you're at the mercy. But I mean, there's a lot of good atmospheric lighting. As a matter of fact, it almost kind of sets you up for success a little bit if you know what you're doing, and you obviously know what you're doing. But you're kind of blowing my mind. It's something I never even considered, the idea that A, you have to shoot at the beginning of the show. B, that a Misfit song versus a Danzig song is so different in time. Plus, the energy is going to be different. I'm sure the energy of shooting Danzig is way different than the energy of shooting the Misfits for a whole slew of reasons. You know what I mean? Not that Glenn always clearly gives 150% in what he's doing, but it's just different energy. And therefore, maybe that also informs how you're taking these shots. What does it feel like when you finish the show? It's like you shoot for the first 2 songs, and then you can obviously enjoy the show. You get to sit there and kick back and, you know, watch the show because you're not shooting anymore. But what does it feel like when you get home and you have all these shots to go through? What is that process like for you?
It depends.
If
I like the shots, great. If I don't, and I'm pretty hard on myself. And before I post any photos, I go through multiple runs. I post most of them on IG, on Instagram, but or even whether I share them on the 7th House or what have you. But very, very picky, very hard on myself, and I think a lot of that comes from, you know, Glenn. But hey, I feel that it's definitely helped me because I'm not a technical photographer by any means. I almost look at myself as like a punk rock photographer where I don't want to fucking read instructions. You know, sure, I'll listen to advice here and there, but it's hard for me to sit in a class and learn. But I do take little tidbits from talking to people, whether it's editing or shooting or whatever it may be, and whatever I like, I use and I incorporate. You know, so
take what you like and leave the rest, like a cafeteria line. You know, I like this, I like that. I'm going to take a little bit of this. I'm going to take a little bit of that.
Yeah, and whatever works, you know. But I think for me, what's worked the most is the equipment I've selected, compiled with just shooting show after show. Before the pandemic, I think I was averaging shooting maybe 2 to 3 shows a week, which for me was a lot. Extreme. That was a lot. Yeah. So I definitely look forward to going back to that, and not only, you know, hopefully Glenn lets me shoot Psycho Fest, which is going to be great, but I am going to be shooting the entire Psycho Fest. So I look forward to, you know, shooting a lot of those bands. But
now you started. Oh yeah, go ahead. Show us what you got there.
Why do you always keep interrupting me, Jeff? I'm just kidding.
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
You know what's funny? There was a video, and it was like, this is what podcasters do, and it was something I was so guilty of. It's like the thing is like the guy's about to the interviewee is about to explain themselves, and then exactly. Look, hey, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So, no, show us what you're going to show us.
No, I'm not going to show you anything. I was just looking through my book collection. I mean, my photo collection. But no, I just brought out a couple here. Let me see if there's anything that I wanted to share with you guys. I don't know if you can see these. These are pretty cool. I'm sure you've seen these. Wow. I got these from Glenn. I mean, this one looks like that Horror Business cover. But anyways, that's not what I want to show. Wow. That's just one of them. But this is the infamous, and maybe I've shown this on the 7th House, but this is rad. And you know, the only way you guys have seen this photo is because Glenn was nice enough to, you know, sell it to me. And so this one, you guys, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with. Great photo. And it's really cool because, you know, it's cool. And you probably can't even see this, but on the back of this, and I'm going to have to wear my glasses, it's rad because it says first Doyle photo shoot 1980, photo by Glenn Danzig, copyright Glenn Danzig, and he signed it. So this is cool. And you can even tell that he developed it himself. So I thought that was rad. And I'm sure you guys have seen that one. I don't know if there's, let me see if there's any other ones that are worth mentioning here since I have some photos out here. I busted out a couple of them. Did you just interrupt me again, Jay?
No, sorry, Devilman. I did
not.
No,
I'm just I know.
I did not do it with Devilman.
This one's pretty cool. Karen O'Sullivan. That's all I'm going to show on that
with
one.
The chicken bone necklace.
You've never seen that one, have you?
I like your technique.
You've never seen that one.
I've never seen that one. Whoop. Just remember, Devilman, people, the screenshotting, people like to screenshot. You gotta make it blurry.
Oh, I know. I know. I was definitely prepared for that. Okay, this is the one I want to show. And I'm sure you guys have seen this one. This one I did not get from Glenn, but I've never seen another one like that. And the reason I know it's original is because, you know,
wow,
is because this is cut out and it says blank records and it was pasted on. And
oh my
look
God,
how clear that photo of Kafka. It's really, really clear. Now there's nothing written on the back of this one. Yeah, exactly. So
what is that?
You know,
wait, question. So is that made? So that's like the master that they then take to get copies of made.
That's what I would think, but I've never seen a copy. Have you?
No,
I never have.
So. No,
unless someone like made a copy of like the image. But I remember one day it was cool because I was with Glenn and I see two photos and I'm like, dude, can I buy one of those? And one of these photos was on a poster. Which is, you know, I call it the Cough Cool poster. And the other photo was from the same session, but just a slight altercation. And so I was like, hey, can I please buy that one? So that's this one. And as you can tell, this one also has blank records over here. Yeah. Glued on. It was like cut out and glued on. And this is actually on the photo, you know, Glenn did it in the Misfits font. And this one is cool because it says photo Glenn Danzig, copyright 1977. So that's direct from GD. That's a really, really unique photo.
That is really cool. And you know what? Correct me if I'm wrong, Devilman. Isn't it true that is where the original Misfits logo comes from when he wrote the Misfits on that particular photo or whatever? That's where it comes from. It never, and then he reproduced it for like all the 7 inches and whatnot. It comes from that. That's the master.
It could be. I guess it could be. You know, whether he had done it before, but you know, on that photo, it's written out on that font, and it's also 1977. So you can't really get too much earlier than that.
Well, they were doing the script thing. They were doing like the script font for the Misfits or whatever. And besides that, I don't think that there were. I don't know. I don't think there's anything earlier than that. So that really that's the beginning. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty old. So I don't know. I thought you guys would get a kick out of that. This one also, you know, this one, obviously you guys have seen too, but it's that Unholy Passion one. Another really, really, really cool photo, clear as fuck. Wow. And it's cool because it's like, photo credit Glenn Danzig, 1985 self-portrait, like one of the OG like selfies, right?
He writes that out, or is it like typed out? Like, what is he? How does he just documented that himself, just so he like had it there?
Well, he wrote that on there when I got the photo. Of him, you know,
I see. No, that's like, you know what that is? That's like what is it? You know, when you have like the certificate of authenticity, you know, or whatever. Like it's like a certificate, you know, in a weird way, but it's even cooler because it's right on the thing. It's, you know what it's like? It's like Glenn writing you in the Fiend Club, but he's like, hey, let me take this 3 Hits from Hell poster and just write a letter on the back. So it's like, not only is it a 3 Hits from Hell poster, but it's got a personalized letter from Glenn Danzig on the back, you know?
Exactly.
Like,
And no,
So
to me,
crazy.
it's awesome because especially because he's the photographer. Sets up the camera
Right.
and a self timer on some of these and so forth. So just a true artist. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you've seen that one from the Bullet poster.
Yes. Okay. So that was taken by George Germain, I believe, possibly, and that is in Jerry's pool house. Jerry and Doyle's pool house. They built a little riser, and it would later get nicknamed the Pit, and that's where they would rehearse on that little stage, and that's where they got. That's what it turned into the Static Age poster. With it started as a twisted dream and ended with the world in heat, which is like the coolest catchphrase ever that never gets used enough. That should be on like every t-shirt, I think so, at least.
And another cool one from Glenn, the Samhain, and then a Danzig one.
Wait, is that a negative picture? Wait, what am I seeing? It looks like a negative, like an intra positive or whatever.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, are you talking about the other one?
Yeah. It looks like it's you know what I mean, like that negative, like where it's like everything's reversed or whatever. Or am I crazy? Maybe my eyes are not processing.
No, you're talking about that one, the Glenn one.
Oh, you know what it is? Nope. Yeah, now I can see it perfectly. It's just I'm wearing sunglasses in a dark basement like an idiot. So sorry. And
no worries.
My eyeballs only absorb blue filtered light. That's the other problem too.
You were just waiting to say that.
Yes, I was. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Which I asked it to Steve. I asked it a few different people. Let's hear, and I know you said you love everything, but give me 10 Danzig songs, 10 Samhain songs.
That's too many.
You got it. All right, fine, 5.
That's way too many.
Come on. Give me
really?
5 of each. Yeah.
5 of each?
Yeah.
All right. Where do you want?
It doesn't have to be of all time. It could just be what you're feeling in the moment right now. For me, it always is changing. For a long time, I had Children of Heat was in my top 5 because I just love that freaking song. Astro Zombies is always kind of up there for me. Possession, the Danzig version of Possession, is always up there for me. But everything else kind of like goes, it kind of shifts. So I don't know if you have, your I don't know if you can do top 5 of each 3, but if you can.
No, I'm sure I can.
Right.
Why don't we'll start with Danzig.
Okay.
I'll start with Danzig. I'll do Blackness Falls. Was it Blackness Falls? I believe that's
Black Laden Crown.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'll go with that. I'll go with Skulls and Daisies off Black Laden Crown.
Okay.
I'll go with Hammer of the Gods.
Great. Love that song.
I'll go with Night Star Hell. That's another one from GRS. So that's the 4th one, right?
Yep.
And then the 5th one, I was just listening to this one. Netherbound, which was on Circle of Snakes.
Oh.
So see, those are my 5. I'm sure if you gave me another 5, they would still be.
No, I asked you for 5. You gave me 5. That's 5.
That was 5.
That's 5. All
so
right.
that was Danzig.
Give me Samhain.
Samhain, I think I'll always have to put this in there, and it's funny because when I tell Glenn, he's like, "Really?" Macabre, number 1, Macabre.
Okay. You and me are on the same wavelength. Macabre is one of my favorite Samhain songs. This song is so bad, and when I say bad, I mean good. It is. Talk about everything that you said about like going against the grain, playing at a hardcore show. All these cookie cutter hardcore bands, and then there's Samhain, and they're doing Macabre. Like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I don't know. And maybe it's the fact that I think and I'm just going to call it like almost like background chanting, reminds me of like The Omen. And so, and it's just that fucking guitar riff is just so twisted and just so unorthodox, that I'm like, that's what I like. And, because of course everyone's going to like 20 Eyes. I turn into a Martian, but I like something that's different, So anyways.
Shift is like that too.
So that was, that's Macabre. Another one would be, and I'm probably going to jump around here, but
okay.
Macabre, I'll definitely have to say Human Pony Girl. That's one.
Ooh, okay.
Pony Girl. I am your power and your pain. Anyways, Human Pony Girl. What are some of the ones from Unholy Passion?
The Hungry End, Moribund.
The one about the shoot. I'm just
Tomb.
going. The one with the slight, like putting the baby through a meat grinder. What was that one?
There's a baby in the meat.
Yeah, which one is that again?
Hungry End.
Hungry End. That song.
That's a secret surf song. If you listen to that song, it is secretly a surf song.
Like that bass, especially like that bass or whatever. Kind of. Yeah, totally.
And then it goes.
Or at least that's what it could remind me of. But that's one of the songs where I told you I like the mix on the later version because you can actually hear Glenn singing these clear things about, putting a baby through a meat slicer or whatever it is. But that song I love. So that's 3.
Yep.
Right? That's 3. And then I'll go with Unholy Passion for sure. Okay. And then and of course, I'm not going to pick it, but someone just posted To Walk the Night. Of course, I love that song.
That's why I put it there. I was pushing it.
Oh, was that you? Or I don't know. But anyways, that was.
No, I shared it. I shared it.
Oh, my 5th one. I'll go with. I'll go with Unbridled.
Okay. Unbridled. That makes me feel like I'm on a roller coaster. Dun, 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 dun. Like I feel like I'm going. Unbridled.
I also like that other. What's that other one that I really like from that? And maybe it's not that one. Oh, Kiss of Steel.
Love Kiss of Steel, which to me, Kiss of Steel is a reworked Die Die My Darling a little bit. There's a lot of shared DNA between Die Die My Darling and Kiss of Steel. If you listen to it, I'm telling you. So.
Good, great song. So those are my Samhain ones. Misfits, now that you mentioned it, I'll say Die Die My Darling. I'll say Come Back.
Oh, yes. Love Come Back.
I will say 138. And just because when I was a kid, to fucking hear that for the first time on the Bullet single was surreal. Again, it's so easy for someone to have heard it once the box set came out and stuff like that. But fuck, it took a long time for me to hear that song. And I was like blown away when I heard it. So I'll say We Are 138. And then
that's so bizarre to me. So for you, because that's so rudimentary to me, 138. But for you, in the order of operations of when you got to hear stuff, that was like something that you'd been waiting to hear.
All I heard was live, and there was bootleg cassettes being traded so you could hear it live. But how the fuck was I going to hear a studio version unless someone had the single and recorded it for me? So incredible. That's it wasn't easy to hear that, but that's a great song. And then you know what? This song I love, and I would love for them to play it. Angel Fuck. I love that song.
Love Angel Fuck.
And then I got to get something off of Walk Among Us, I would imagine. You know what? I'm going to go with, I don't know. For right now, I'll go with Queen Wasp from Earth AD.
Okay.
From Earth AD. See that? I don't think it's not. Oh, he fucked up. No, because I said Walk Among Us initially, but no, I'll go with Queen Wasp. So that's just for now. But hey, Jeff, these change all the time,
They change all the time, man.
And out of all these bands, what do I listen to the most? For sure, Danzig and Samhain, and occasionally the Misfits. And not the only reason, not the Misfits, because I did that 20 years ago, whatever, when I was a kid, and I still love it. But again, I like progression, and I like to hear. I usually like what Glenn is usually thinking most recent.
It's so funny because we meet at Samhain because I'm the exact opposite. I love Danzig. Don't get me wrong, but it goes for me. It's Misfits and Samhain, and then obviously I love Danzig. But Danzig's like the third wheel of the 3 when I'm listening to stuff, and it's just it's so funny how the first time that I heard Samhain on Initium, which was the first time I'd ever heard Samhain. And I'm listening to Black Dream, and my very first thought is like, oh, it's just doing the Misfits, but without, just like continuing it on. And couldn't have been more wrong. You know what I mean? Like it's you keep listening to those songs. You listen to like The Howl, you listen to The Shift, and you're just kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? What is this? The Shift is like, The Howl is kind of like, it's kind of like a scary story. It's like a campfire story, like about like, don't go up on the hill where the werewolves change and you get, taken apart or whatever. I don't know. I
love what he did with his lyrics going from Misfits to Samhain, Yep. I love it. So yeah. I think it was I don't know. This is just my humble opinion, and it's cool because like he just went, he was a pioneer to go a totally different direction to some degree, right? Because he went against, I think punk rock was getting faster and he went the other way. And that to me is pretty bold. That's almost like similar. And I'm not saying, I don't want to compare it exactly to, let's say, Black Acid Devil, but no Danzig album sounds the same. So it's just, I like it how it always changes.
Which album is the one that they always say is a secret Samhain album? That's a Danzig album, and that it's like very evocative of Samhain. I always get it confused.
What, Final Descent?
No. One of the Danzig albums. I think I've heard former members say this, and I don't remember. Maybe I'm crazy, but that one of the Danzig albums is supposed to be like kind of it's in very evocative of what Samhain was, and this is after they've become Danzig and are doing Danzig stuff, but I can't remember which one it was.
Well, I remember when they put out 4P, you know, they had a lot of reminiscent, you know,
was it maybe it was 4.
Yeah, they had, but I don't know. I've heard, I guess, that from a few different albums, but I just remember like in interviews where they mentioned, you know, I remember Glenn, I think there was an interview where he was in Mesa, Arizona, where he was saying, it was a video interview where he's saying, you know, it brought me and the bass player to, you know, it reminded us of a lot of the stuff we were doing in Samhain.
Gotcha. Okay, maybe.
So I don't know, but
yeah,
that could be it. I'm not sure. Even and also Danzig 1 had a lot of, you know, in progress Samhain songs too, but definitely sounds different than just the way it came out.
I mean, dude, like, I was reveling on that about like Final Descent, like very recently, like the fact that like you listen to Possession when he's still like in Samhain mode, and then you listen to it in Danzig mode, and I love both. I like the Danzig one more, but it's just amazing his approach to the vocals just suddenly shifts, and he's not doing that. He's like growling and barking the Possession when it's still Samhain, and then everything changes when he decides to strip it down and do the Danzig thing, and he approaches the same song but from like the Danzig prism of vocals, and it's at another level. It's at another freaking level, and it's like, and same thing with Twisted Cain too. Same thing with Twisted Cain.
I love those Samhain versions. Like there's a fast version and a slow version. I love the actually like the really slow version, but
apparently Mother used to be really fast. Did you ever?
I haven't heard any different mixes of that one, but
no,
but
but
it would
like
be
when
interesting to hear.
But they were before they recorded it, that it was like a really fast song.
Oh, really?
Really fast, aggressive. Yeah, I don't remember where I heard that. I got to tell you, Greg Fasolino, I don't know if you know.
Good guy.
Great guy, and he had this unheard Danzig interview, and it's like right after they released Danzig 1, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating timestamp of where Danzig was as a band, and it's just so interesting to hear him talk just about like what he's trying to do and how he's approaching it and how it's different from Samhain. And Greg is very familiar with Samhain before and had been to Samhain shows. So it was very interesting to hear this guy who was very understanding of Glenn and his sound now suddenly change into what they were now, which is Danzig. So
yeah, Greg is a good guy. He actually lent me his Samhain negatives. It must have been now like, I don't know, at least 15 years ago. I mean, so This was a long time ago. This was before social media. Him and I were connected, but he had those killer. I think his negatives had all this like sticky stuff on them, and somehow I got them cleaned up and I developed them and I sent them back to him. But yeah, great guy.
He's a phenomenal archivist.
I just wish they would have taken my contest entry serious back then, because dude, I fucking went to the only person that knew Latin. And the reason I wrote it in Latin is because Glenn wrote Halloween 2 in Latin, right? So I wrote all this stuff. I found the only person who knew Latin to translate something like "I want your skull" in Latin. And I'm sure they looked at it and go, "We don't know what this says next." And I'm like, "What?" You know. So anyways, that was the contest that he was involved in.
That's crazy. So you had.
I was in high school.
Yeah. Wow.
I was in high school, and I had to go to another high school across town. And I'm like, you know Latin? And I'm sure now if I try to find someone that knows Latin, I wouldn't find it, you know? I spent hours on that fucking letter.
Right. I mean, like that's in the digital age, of the internet, you probably could find some like
translator.
Yeah, some translation or some, I'm sure there's like a program that would do it for you. But that's what I mean. Like that's why I find that time, the 80s and the 90s, is such a fascinating time where, like, in order to, and we talk about this constantly on the show, you know what we talk about constantly? It's like kind of crazy when you think about it. The Misfits break up. Earth AD comes out. You're like, okay, that's the last we're ever going to hear of Misfit songs. That's it. That's, you know, they put out Earth AD. And then Die Die My Darling gets released. And it has We Bite and Mommy Can I Go Out and Kill Tonight, which had only been heard live on Walk Among Us, right? Yeah. So it's like, wait, what? There's 3 more songs, and then Legacy of Brutality comes out. It's got the other half of the songs from Bullet. What? There's even more? And
pretty
it's
insane.
Like, yeah, it's kind of insane when you look at it from that point of view. Like, if you wanted to get this stuff, that like the way that you got it and how you would have to go about it, or if you wanted information, you had to read zines, you know.
Oh, big time.
Library, you know.
Were you a big zine guy? And yes, because why? Because they have photos, right? But I remember back in, I think around 86, after I bought my first Walk Among Us, at that time I did my next crazy purchase, and the guys at Neil's Records looked at me like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I was like, "You know what? Screw it. I already spent $60 on Walk Among Us. I'm gonna fucking buy Horror Business." And back then it cost me a lot. It was $90, and that was probably the highest price, at least around the LA, you know, like LA area conventions, because I would go to all the conventions because that's where all these punk rock guys would be selling their records. And I bought it for $90, and you know, people were like, "Wow, you're crazy." And I remember, I'll never regret this. I went to Fender's Ballroom around the same time, and I left and I said, I should have bought it. It was a, you know, Legacy, you know, I ended up buying it later, but they had Legacy of Brutality for $30, you know, like, so colored vinyls were like $30-$40, singles at the most were $100. I'm sure a Cough Cool around then was maybe $150. So that was, you know, some crazy times, you know, but at the same time, we didn't buy it because it was trendy or collectible. We bought it because it fucking sounded rad.
Right. It wasn't an investment, a far cry from my earlier question about insuring collections. At the time, you just did it because you were into it, because it was cool. It's the same thing as, you know, some people may or may not know this, but Glenn Danzig, separate from the music, separate from being a filmmaker and all this, and separate from publishing comic books, he kind of deals in art, right? Like he has a collection of serious pieces. He was very close to the Kirby's and yada, yada, yada. Yes. And he could tell you anything. That dude, like, I heard a YouTube video. We watched the YouTube video on the channel about, and Glenn's like, okay, so this is blah, 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 blah. And look at the line work. And it must have been in this era at this time because his lines are thicker here. He just and he did it because he thought it was cool. Right? Like,
he knows his art, especially the art he's into, and it's great that, like, for example, his comic book company allowed him to have that outlet where he got to work with a lot of the killer artists like Simon Bisley and multiple others, and, you know, rest in peace, Marty Eamon, which, dude, that guy, I don't know if you remember Marty, but he has great artwork. He even did some of the Samhain, I guess like on the box, if that's his artwork, like on the cover. But anyways, Martin Eamon was such a good guy. And I remember one time, because he was from New Zealand, and he came over to LA, and he goes, Devilman, I will do any artwork for you. All I want is a copy of 4P. And at that time, I was interning at American Recordings. And now it's funny to see all these people like saying, look what I got, this 4P sealed. I had access to like hundreds of those sealed because, you know, that was rad. It was.
When did you enter? Wait,
that was summer of '95, I think. It was funny because I was working at a restaurant. I was still in college, working part-time at a restaurant called the Ivy. You know, really nice restaurant in Beverly Hills. And who comes in? Rick Rubin. And he comes in his black Bentley, and I'm like, Rick, I want to work for you. He goes, okay, call up intern and tell him that you know, see what they can do for you. Tell them I sent you. Wow. So I just did. I just called, and I was just a kid, so I didn't really know what the hell I was saying. And I'm sure nowadays I'd be trying to ask for a job, but back then I was just looking to intern, and they let me intern because I told them Rick sent me there, Rick Rubin. Wow. And you know, that was really, 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 really cool experience, because Glenn would come into the office, and, you know, we would promote 4P at the time, and so that was pretty surreal as well.
Wow. So you got some of the perks are, like promo stuff that would come through. You get maybe a choice piece here, a choice piece there, whatever. Like anything that would, like that was being sent out to radio stations and stuff. Did you get to you got to partake of some of the goodies and whatnot?
Yeah, send them out. And also, if you recall, the packaging of 4P was a little bit odd. So one of my responsibilities was to call every like major record store on a list, like Tower Records to small mom and pops, or any of these record stores, to go, hey, I just want to make sure you have this in stock, and how many do you have? Do you need more? Like that was my job at Intern, like just calling every store to make sure that they had 4P in stock.
Wow. Because and that's like at a time too when didn't Demon Sweat came out before 4P, right?
Yeah, Thrall Demon Sweat Live in '93.
Right. So that's when he's broken into the top 40 or whatever. He's like, getting radio play with Mother. And this is like the big follow-up to the big radio hit. So it's like a very sort of important release, right? Like you want to, make a big splash after getting so much radio play.
Absolutely. And I think they wanted to capture, like, they wanted to release it as soon as possible, and I think it ended up being delayed, even though it was released in October. I think, but at the time they were on tour with Metallica, so that was another perk, being in that intern, or being in the office at American Recordings. They would always send these cool videos of Danzig on tour with Metallica and stuff. So it was just a great experience just to see how the music business worked. And I don't know if you've seen it lately, but I think there's like a 4P promo video that's recently surfaced on YouTube where they show the band like this.
Yeah.
I wasn't there, but it was cool. I was like, I used to work with all those people at American. I think all those folks worked at American except for the guy who actually played Bill Clinton, the lookalike, but all the rest were, folks I knew from American, which they were great. All those people from American Recordings were awesome.
And then it got ripped off. Somebody ripped off Glenn. It got ripped off immediately. Almost the next year, another band did a very similar thing, and it was totally ripped off. I always thought that. I always thought it was ripped off.
Who was that?
You know what I'm talking about? Well, just another band. They, came out of coffins and just the exact same thing that Glenn had done 1 year prior, and then they just
really?
Same thing. Yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny.
Interesting.
It was just interesting because it was like, they literally, because 4P came out in 1994, and then this band comes around in 1996, and they put out, a video for their album, and they're just it's same thing, like the coffin lids come down and blah blah blah, but it's like clearly they had seen 4P and they had seen that thing, which in fact doesn't that come from some comment? Somebody made a comment, and that's like that photo is in reference to something that was said about like or the president said something, or something about, there was something surrounding that.
It's almost like Glenn getting a lot of flack or something, like almost being like,
yeah, there was something had happened. There was some non-existent controversy now, but at the time it was like some sort of thing, and then that was a reaction. That photo is a reaction of them being in like the coffin, sort of like making fun of the whole thing, like and putting it on the Danzig record, which I thought was interesting. Great way to sort of say something without saying something, if that was the intention. Who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows? None of us know. This is, remember, folks, as I always say on the show, this is all conjecture. We pour over this stuff because we like it. We love the minutia, but at the end of the day, it's all just conjecture. So let me ask you this, Devilman. So you're taking photos of Glenn for many, many years, and then all of a sudden that kind of blossoms into you, because I've seen, I saw like in the peripheral, I see you taking photos of all these other bands. It's sort of like blossom for you. Like you're just out there kind of taking pictures, and you've done it for magazines. Am I correct about that? Or is it like websites? Like what's going on? Explain it to me.
Just mainly shoot for different publications, mainly for Go Venue, which is it's online, and it's great because I work with the guy from Go Venue, Robert, good friend of mine. He's been more than supportive and has given me the opportunity just to shoot a lot of these bands, and it's great because I don't know. I mean, I love to be right in front of the pitch, shoot them. There's all different kinds of bands, but I think that, you know, and I mentioned it before earlier, but by getting all this experience shooting these, it just prepares me more. Like if I ever want to shoot Glenn, because Glenn is extremely picky and rightfully so. That's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like shooting all types of bands, whether it's in a club or even like, you know, there's nothing like being at Madison Square. Favorite? Well, I do love shooting arenas. Why? Because I get fantastic lighting.
Yeah.
Or at least for like the main act, right? Because like,
right.
But like, you know, it's pretty surreal when you're at Madison Square Garden. You're looking this way. There's a stage. You look this way, and especially like for that Misfits show. That show was like completely sold out. So that was fantastic. Also, another great experience was shooting Glenn at Knotfest at San Bernardino in 2014. You know, just looking at the Glen Helen Pavilion, you know, in Southern California, just completely packed. It's just, it's pretty surreal, you know? So yeah, I just like to shoot. I love to shoot, primarily live photography. And so that's why I'm really looking forward to, you know, getting back to normal. And it's really interesting because, I just went to the Dodger game last night, and I would say 90% of the people had no mask. So it's like, I think people are just itching to go back out, you know, and I'm not going to, you know, comment whether, you know, I feel this way or that way, but it's cool that now people have an option to where, hey, if you want to wear a mask, feel free to. If you don't, you don't. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to things getting back to normal and just shooting a lot, because that's my passion.
Dude, I know all about, I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's a great feeling when you can dig into your passion and do your thing. I'm actually going to see Bauhaus on November 2nd. Very excited for that in New York. And before that, my first official show back since this whole COVID thing. The last time I saw a show was December 2019. It was the Pixies, and my first show is the Pixies. So I'm seeing the Pixies again.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm a huge Pixies fan. I love that. And yeah, I mean, that's just, I've been craving live music. And just a note about that Madison Square Garden show, I pretty much decided, like, I would definitely see the Misfits again if I could, but if I never see them again live, I don't think I ever have to, because that was in my opinion, that was the ultimate show. That was the best, that they sounded the best. They had, it's 2019, 40 years from 1979 when they opened for the Damned at Hurrah in New York City. 40 years later, now the Damned are opening for the Misfits at Madison Square Garden. It's October, and you know, and I know that a bunch of people would argue with me about this. I think the Misfits are a New York band. I don't think of them as a New Jersey band. They came up in the New York punk scene of the late 70s. They are a New York band by way of New Jersey. So this is a hometown. This is their first true homecoming show in New York City, where they made their bones at Max's Kansas City. And now here they are at Madison Square Garden, sold out friggin' show. The Damned are opening for them, and they put on the most killer set. Did you see the girl in the wheelchair in the pit?
Oh, wasn't that gnarly? And then Jerry giving her his bass, right?
Yep.
That was really cool.
For those of you who are not there or do not realize, I was in the pit too, and there was this girl in a wheelchair, and what was amazing was people were running interference for her because she was just circled, whatever. She was going around in the pit in the fucking wheelchair. And at the end of the show, everybody lifts her up in the wheelchair like she's some kind of Cleopatra or something. And move her towards the stage, and on Jerry's side of things, and Jerry bestows her with a perfectly good unbroken bass. And then I think Glenn said the funniest thing ever. He was like, you got any more of those for the rest of these people, Jerry, or something like that. Some sort of that, you know, they go back and forth like that on stage, which is so wonderful to see. And you know, listen, seeing the Misfits live was exciting, but before even the Misfits came, there was something that was just as exciting for different reasons, and it was the Danzig Legacy. The Danzig Legacy,
phenomenal.
It was phenomenal, dude. It was like you got to see everything.
Yeah.
You know, and it just,
and that's why, Jeff, you know, for example, you know, that's why Obviously I'm always there to see, it's great to see the Misfits. It's good to see Danzig Legacy, but they're always Glenn's songs. So it's like, to me, it doesn't really matter who's with him. Even though ideally I like to always have his current lineup involved just because they're,
right.
They're the most recent, they're playing with him and so forth. But I do got to say, and, for as far as the Misfits, Jerry, Doyle, AC, Dave Lombardo, all really, really good guys, really nice guys. So, I can't say enough nice things about them all. So, I mean, pretty much anyone who's, played with Glenn. But, yeah, it's really cool to see those shows and to see, Jerry give that, girl in the wheelchair, the bass, and so forth. There's just a lot of good things that happen at those shows for sure.
Yeah, it really is. And, I don't know what the future holds, but whatever it is, I hope it's a bright one, and I'm looking forward to whatever may or may not come next. Yet to be seen. I've seen little drips and drabs of photos here and photos there. We'll see what happens. Who knows? I'm really. I know they're going to play. Where did they play? Mexico or something? I think there's a Mexico.
Did they? Did they do that officially? Because they're doing that Aftershock for sure, right?
Maybe it's Aftershock. I don't know. I know something. There's something happening with. There's at least one show that's happening, and I think it's technically the Misfits' first international show since England in 1979, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So how's about them apples?
Well, to me, what I think is pretty cool is that the fact that they haven't recorded anything in 40 years together, and they're selling out arenas. That to me is just like Glenn always says, it's like a big, fuck you, where were you? And it's funny because when we're at the Rainbow and someone says, hey, so-and-so wants to take a picture with you. And Glenn goes, it's kind of funny. And I just immediately naturally said that now they're asking to ask for you, where were they back then? Maybe even 2-3 years ago, before you guys started doing these Misfit shows, and it's funny because Glenn goes, yeah, all of a sudden people want pictures and everything. It's like
the brand.
I don't know. It's pretty
in a whole new way.
It's exploded. And so, yeah, I think it's really, really cool that, they can sell out arenas for songs that they wrote 40 years ago. And imagine yourself, if you wrote something 40 years ago, you may not even be proud of it. You know what I mean? But for these guys, not only is it fucking cool, I'm sure they're very proud of it, and they're selling out arenas. So good for them. Good for them.
Beyond good for them. And I'll tell you something, the big scuttlebutt that everybody's ordering, are they going to do something new? Are they not going to do something new? And I'll be honest with you, here's the thing. I don't think that they should or could or that it would work. I think that if anything, if we were to get anything, I just want an Evil Live 3 or an Evil Live 2, whatever it's called. I just want just a live recording from the soundboard of one of these shows on vinyl. Yeah, I think that would be really great, because I just think it would be really great. I think it would. For
awesome. Sure. No, I hear you. And I think I'm on the same page with you because, to me, the Misfits is a legacy. I just want it to stay that way. I would rather not hear anything new. But yeah, it's just, to me, it's just cool that the legacy is still as strong as it is. And, kind of like we talked about before, that, the vinyl, the collecting, it's timeless.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. That's what's interesting about vinyl too, is that unlike tapes and unlike CDs, there's something about vinyl. It's not immortal, but it lasts forever. It's a very physical format. You have to have a relationship with the vinyl. You have to pick up the vinyl. You got to put it, you watch it spin. You look at the big ass album artwork. You look at the liner notes. You become a detective, right? You're looking for clues of oh, what is it? What does this say about the band? This is how, what can I learn about the band from this? Because this is literally your internet, right?
And that's how it really was for a lot of us, fiends, I guess, back in the 80s, because there wasn't much info on the Misfits. It was, especially the photos. That to me was insane. I mean, once Danzig was going to start his new group, there would be one little photo of a blurry Misfits photo. I'm like, holy fuck, I've never seen that, and now there's just we're just spoiled, but that's just because technology has taken, a different, it's just a different different time now. So it's cool that a lot of this stuff is surfacing.
I'm very happy about it, but I will say this, and I truly feel this way. If it's not out there, people are upset that like stuff isn't out there, but this is what people don't realize. This is also intellectual property. There's a lot of different ownership to these things. There's the people that own the actual thing, whether it's a photo or a recording or whatever it is. And then there's the intellectual copyright that's owned by Glenn. And it's like, all this stuff, there's red tape. You can't just drop shit. If it's going to come out, it should come out the proper way through the proper channels, or at least give it the opportunity to. And that's why, people get really twisted up about like, why is this not released? Or I want to see this photo, or I want to hear this recording. And it's like, it's just not that simple. Like if you're ethically doing it right, you know what I mean? I mean, it's one thing, look, if it's already out there, it's already out there. It's a different story. But like, if it's not out there, then it's like, if someone is the arbiter of these things, it's up to them to like not share it if it's not their right to share, And so there's that to consider too, I think, a little bit.
That's why I was stoked when Glenn actually approved the Samhain Stardust Ballroom DVD, which in my opinion is one of the best DVDs ever.
It's a great DVD.
So yeah, I mean, if it's done legitimately.
What was the story behind that? That was just like.
All I know is that, and Glenn didn't make a big deal about it at the time. He just goes, oh yeah, he got our permission, and that was it. And I just bought a copy and I was stoked, so
yeah,
I don't know. I guess the guy from from Flipside just had that video available, which had never been released, and he contacted Glenn. To your point, I guess did it the correct way,
right?
And it was released, and we all got it, and that was like, I guess at the end of the day, it's great that Glenn gets the opportunity to say yes, I want this out, or no. If the boss says no, it is what it is,
Right.
So, but trust me, I'm go ahead.
No, sorry. You go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say I'm a fan like all of us, so of course I would love to see it, but it's just a little bit different when Glenn. So if anything, I just want what he wants in the sense that I just want him to be happy. He's the one making the money, and I mean the music. He's making the music, so he's the artist. It's his band, and it's funny because if you think, and not you personally, but if people think that Seventh House might be stringent on some of the posts or not. And I don't know, maybe I said this earlier, but you have no clue how Glenn really is. And some things he's really cool about, and some things he won't tolerate it. I've been in conversations with him, and I'm just like, yeah, this one fan is saying this. And he got so mad. He's like, give me that guy's number so I can fucking call him and tell him, fuck you, it's my band. I don't want to give a shit who you think is a better guitarist. It's my band. And I'm like, okay, cool, it's cool. So, you just want to keep him happy, and he's the artist. So, good for him.
You represent, but you have a burden that people don't understand, and it's not a burden per se, but like it's just like you have a responsibility. Being the official fan site has to be done in an official kind of way, and that's why I'll never understand when people just like don't get that. Like it's just you have to align by certain things. Like there are certain things that I don't post in that group because I understand that and I get it. And you just gotta understand. You just gotta.
No, I think for the most part, people mean well. I think the only time I can these days I truly get pissed is like if I don't know, like I mean, I have no problems talking to anybody as to, let's say, why we did this or that. But again, that stuff is in the minority. I think at the end of the day, people understand. Hey, and if they don't, I'll explain it to them. A lot of this, and yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. But people are for the most part really, really cool. And they understand, and we want to keep them happy.
It's a really good community. I hate, what I can't stand this is the one thing I can't stand about elitism and fandom, especially when it comes to Misfits, Samhain, and Danzig. It's like sometimes we'll get people, and again, this is not a slight if any of those people are listening, but like, we have in our little Lodi group, someone's like, oh, it was like, walking down the street and there was a guy or a girl and they were wearing a Misfits shirt, and I was like, so can you name some songs by the band? And they're like, what? This is a band? And like, it's just like, it's like, what? Like, why do you even gotta be like, so what? Like, who cares? They're wearing a shirt that they really love. And it's like, okay, so they don't know it's a band. So inform them, be like, oh, I don't know if you realize this. It's a band. It's a really cool band. Go listen to Static Age. Go listen to Danzig Lucifuge. You know what I mean? Like, why, turn this into a whole thing of like, oh, and they were wearing the shirt and they didn't even know who the band was. They just thought the skirt looked cool. It just I just don't understand that kind of elitism. Me personally.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I agree with you. It's funny because just the other day, I don't know if they were doing that to me because I was wearing a T-shirt and they didn't know who I was, but they're like, Danzig or the other guy. And I looked at him and I was like, yeah, as if, it's like Danzig only. And he looked at me like shocked, because I responded just naturally, like with no hesitation. And he looked at me and he's like, he's all right. And I'm like, Danzig only. Take care. Bye. Yeah. He was cool, but it's just funny. But I hear what you're saying. And at the end of the day, hey, if that music is getting out there and it's getting spread, whether it's from the artwork or something, all I'm saying is that it's doing the right thing. The music is doing the right thing. It's timeless, and I think most people that see those T-shirts, they know what the deal is, and good for them. It just continues the legacy. Hey, Jeff, evil never dies.
Evil never dies. Listen, we're gonna land this airplane, but before we land this airplane, we talked about your top 5 of each. Thank you for accommodating my request. Now I want to ask you if you had to pick a single artwork from each era of the legacy, a single artwork.
There you
go.
Okay. No, it's okay. Go ahead. No, that's okay.
Single or 3?
One from each. Can I do one from each, or you want 5 from each?
No. Top 3 from each. How about that? Top 3.
Let me do one of each.
Okay, fine. One of each. And it has to be not your favorite artwork, just an artwork that you think is really interesting. Because again, another thing we talked about, we revel in the fact that Glenn Danzig is a Renaissance man, but lest we forget, Glenn Danzig's a graphic designer. And not only is he a graphic designer, he's a graphic designer before motherfucking Photoshop. This dude was fucking Photoshopping shit before Photoshop even existed. He's like, oh, we need a picture of JFK. Where are we going to get a picture from JFK? Hey, Jerry, go grab a picture. Go steal a picture of JFK from the public library, and we'll use that. Like, he's just creating this stuff with X-Acto razors. And what's that thing, Devilman? When the Xerox, you Xerox it a whole bunch of times to make it feel really thick. Like you see it in zines all the time. It's like this weird aesthetic. He's doing that too. And where you Xerox something like 100 times to make it like thicker. You know what I mean? Like it's a Xerox of a Xerox.
Yeah. I noticed he would do that a lot. Like on real photos, I noticed he would Xerox them so they would look just almost like prints. But
right.
No, but I know what you mean. And dang, there's just so much artwork that I would only be able to like do like one
designer though. Yeah, no, go ahead. Give me one of each.
As far as Samhain, the one I really like is the Unholy Passion artwork. I really like that. Okay. And it's really cool because that's the one that has like the succubus with the stairway next to it, right?
Yep.
Or I don't know. It's funny because I never even knew those were stairs until I saw.
What? No. All right, now I'm going to look it up right now. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Well, are we talking about? I just want to make sure I'm thinking correctly. So that is the right one, right?
Unholy Passion. Yeah, there's like stairs on the side.
Okay, yeah. So I never even knew those were stairs until I saw the entire artwork, which Glenn did himself. He had it like on this little. I don't even know how to describe it, like a board, a white piece of board. And it's that kind of artwork where you just do I think it's like a lot of dots.
Yeah, like pen and ink.
Yeah, so that was fantastic. So seeing that artwork, it was cool. I'm not going to, give away what's there, and some people may know, but yeah, that's a stairway, and then there's like an image hiding underneath the stairway. It's never been released. But anyways, the Unholy Passion for sure. That would have to be my Samhain artwork that I really, really like.
Dude, you're blowing my mind right now. There's an image underneath.
Well, you just don't see the entire artwork, but it's just the artwork alone that Glenn showed me one time was fantastic for that. And man, I wish I should have. I don't know if he would have sold it to me back then, but that thing is beautiful. Just that artwork is insane. As far
Does he still
as
have his collection? Does he still like collect anything? Does he have like? Is it just like he doesn't care about it in the way of like it's whatever, here, you take it, or does he still hold on to pieces that have some sort of meaning or connection from what you've seen?
I'm sure he does, and again, I don't ever want to speak for Glenn, but
right.
I don't know. I think I put myself in his shoes, and it's like I release this stuff, so I don't know if he's like, oh yeah, I collect one of my own of each, or maybe he just has it there, or maybe if he gets a good offer, he might sell it. I don't know, because I know he has sold stuff in the past, but I don't know. I don't think he's like isn't obviously like we are.
Right. It's not as sentimental for him.
Right. Exactly. For me, that's why just hanging out with him and saying, "What the hell is that?" And then he starts going through boxes, and it's just insane. But yeah. So I don't know if he really likes that stuff, but at least from my perception, it's more like, hey, it's just my musical past, and oh, really, it's worth that much? How much will you give me for it? Oh, I'll think about it. But it's not like. That's why you got to have a nice poker face, because else he'll say like, okay, then you really want this that bad?
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. Because I'm sure he knows what some of this stuff is going for and so forth. So.
Oh yeah. He's selling speakers. There's speakers that he's trying to. I think he posted that. Somebody posted that somewhere. There's like PA speakers that are currently being sold. I'm
not sure, but I know at one time he did sell some those cases that they use on tour, like to carry their outfit, like their stage wear and stuff like that. And he sold some of those in the past. I know some guy from Vegas bought that stuff, but either way, I mean, the stuff that comes from him is pretty insane, So I think whether he has some of that stuff, I'm sure he does.
I think the Pumpkins should go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, those are awesome. Who made those? That was my good friend that owns the Halloween store.
Oh, really?
I
got to touch them. I touched them at Riot Fest.
Wayne Toth? I believe his name is Wayne Toth. Great guy. But they're
hollow. Not hollow. They're like light.
He not only did he make those pumpkins, but a lot of the stage stuff that Glenn uses for Danzig. I think he even made the gargoyles from Halloween '92. But he's been working with Glenn for a long time. Great. Those pumpkins are awesome. What
happened to Bullwinkle from like the classic Danzig? Remember the giant?
I believe, as far as I know, Glenn still has it. I remember at one time he was considering selling that, and that would have been around the time when they did those Roxy, those Sunset shows. And I think he busted one out for one of those shows, I believe. But I go, you'd sell that? I'll buy that. And he's like, okay, give me like 20 grand. I'm like, I can't afford that. But I do want it.
It's funny. Steve posts the giant skeleton that he has on his lawn that he got from Home Depot. And I said, you need to replace the skull with the Danzig skull on the top. It would be like having the human scarecrow on your lawn.
Which would be perfect.
That's where the Danzig guy lives. That guy plays in Danzig, definitely. Pretty funny.
Agreed.
So where? Okay. So what's your Misfits artwork? Pick a Misfits artwork. Now.
Darn it! I thought I got out of those.
Nope.
I was like, he forgot. Anyways, no. Misfits. Best. My favorite artwork, or probably the one that comes to mind. What would it be? You know what? It's like, I don't even know if this is artwork, but what comes to mind, and I don't know if you're familiar with, is the Tuesday, February 27th show from Max's, where it has, and it's from probably a horror movie with the girl screaming and the couple looking at the skeleton on the.
Yes, a former member had a torn version of that poster, and it, I believe it was in the possession of Umberto. Actually, Umberto had it, and
I just don't want it in myself. It's beautiful.
Beautiful poster. And basically, for those of you who are not familiar, it's like this woman. I don't know where Glenn got this woman from, but it's a woman. She's going, it's the Misfits. Yeah. And there's like a skeleton at the bottom. It is a really cool poster. Okay. I'm gonna let that slide because you're supposed to say an album artwork, but I'll let it slide if you want.
Oh, did you say album? You said album?
I technically wanted an album, but if you want to,
I'll give you an album.
Okay,
I would have to give it to Walk Among Us. I really like that artwork. And the funny thing is, I guess the first one wasn't supposed to come out pink, but I like the pink and I do like the purple. I almost like the pink more.
I love the pink. I love them all, man. I just love the look of them. I wish we had them in a bunch of different colors. I'm all for it. It's supposed to bleed down. It's supposed to fade, kind of like what they did on Evil. I think the effect he wanted is the effect that he eventually put on Evil Live.
On the re-release.
Right around the same. Well, yeah, right on the exactly. Not on the
like
Fiend Club edition. The re-release was the intended effect that he wanted for Walk Among Us. I think.
All I know is I really dig that artwork. I always have. You know, I also love the Earth AD artwork, both front and back. You know, I can't say enough about that. And then as far as go ahead.
Funny little story there. I was looking at a picture of the Wolf's Blood artwork for the first time, and I never noticed the skull balls or the snake dick.
You and a few others recently, right?
Dude, I was laughing my ass off because you just know that Glenn was like, skull balls and a snake dick. That's perfect. Yes. Okay, great. Like, just like, of course, like, just like just demons. You know what I mean? It's just awesome. It's
dude,
awesome.
And before I forget,
yes,
I wish I could. If I had a time machine moment, I would have loved to go to that Santa Monica Civic Show in June here out in California, and then after that, go see them record Earth AD because didn't they come out? They recorded that right after with Spot.
Yep.
And then I just remember hearing, you know, Glenn was tired, he was sleeping, and they woke him up to do the vocals. Fuck, man, I would have done anything just to be a fly on the wall there because then you could really just hear Glenn clearly, you know, like in the studio with those lyrics because, you know, I didn't back as a kid in the 80s, you heard that, but it's like I used to play it for my friends and they always just, you know, I remember one of my friends commenting saying, is he singing in a different language? You know, just because it was hard to understand. But man, if I could go back in time, that would be one of my time machine moments to see them record that with Spot out here in California.
Real quick, before I want to say one thing about that, but before we do, Valor of the Broken, thank you for your support. And we have a question for you, Devilman. Thoughts on Night of Hate from the 88 demos, if you have any thoughts about those.
What is that? Is that like the Danzig or like the Samhain?
I think it's a rehearsal recording from 1987. And
where they're doing.
There's a song called Night of Hate. There was like Possession, Night of Hate.
So it is that session, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So I don't know if you're familiar.
Well, as a fan, I remember in the late 80s trading tapes, and I got that. And Danzig 1 had just come out. So by listening to those, I was like, son of a bitch, this is fucking rad to hear. And then obviously that one song, whatever, or one of those songs from that Night of Hate, it always kind of reminded me of, it didn't sound like the Cult, but it kind of reminded me like that riff or I don't know, just kind of, because that one of those songs wasn't released, but that whole demo session to me was fucking. I was like a kid on cloud nine, like that I had access to this because again, you couldn't just go to YouTube and listen to it like you can now. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, to hear what eventually made it onto Danzig 1, at least some of those songs, right?
Right.
And some of those other ones, to me, the first time hearing that as a fan, I was blown away.
Yeah, I mean, that's the magic. That is the magic of that time where you kind of like it captures your imagination. You're hearing these things and you're going like, holy crap. Like, and
another
misinformation too. It's mislabeled or you don't know what, like where it came from or, you know, the information's not right or the titles are not right. It's crazy.
I think it's just really cool. And what was I going to mention on that? What Glenn would always call, because, you know, some of those, it almost sounds like maybe he doesn't have full lyrics, but sometimes he would just kind of go along with it and do like what he calls, I guess, scratch vocals, just to put something in place to see how it would sound. And then eventually he would, you know, update the lyrics or change them or what have you. But that's why when I listened to those, I was like, wow, this is fantastic. So hopefully that answers the question. But yeah, that was a pretty surreal moment the first time I heard that on a cassette tape back in the 80s.
I think possession is different too, a little bit. And I know that, there are, for instance, if you've heard the first Samhain show, which was in March of 84, right?
Yeah.
He is singing way different lyrics for a bunch of those songs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because here's the thing: they're tracking. They started tracking in January of 1984. Erie joins on bass in January of 1984. They go into real platinum with Babaleka. They're tracking Samhain Initium, and they finished tracking by May. The first show was in March, and they go on that radio station to promote it. You've heard that interview, that recording, whatever.
Yeah.
And the lyrics on Samhain are different. The lyrics on, I think, The Shift and Macabre are different.
I want to say the one that stands out was He Who Cannot Be Named was a little bit different.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. But I know what you mean.
And Glenn's playing guitar. It's interesting. It's really fascinating to me. We have another question. How do you interpret the lyrics? Thank you for your support, Ballad of the Broken. How do you interpret the lyrics of Theme for a Jackal? We've thought it was about Ted Kennedy, just a general esoteric allegory, etc. So do you have any thoughts about this, Devilman?
I don't know. I never really thought about that deep other than I don't know. I don't know if I have an opinion on that, but that's an interesting one. I love those lyrics, right? I don't know. The only thing that really stands out to me on that one was is dead daughter in the river.
Dead daughter in the river.
Gained by her liver.
Yep.
I don't know. That just to me that's when I think of Theme of a Jackal. I'm like, that's wild. Especially that he's saying something so fucking like brutal, but it sounds kind of nice. So I don't know. So as far as a theme, I'm not really sure. That's an interesting one. Thanks for sharing that. But I don't know if I necessarily have one.
Those early Misfit songs, he thanks Bukowski on the back of Cough Cool. He is so clearly like trying, and again, as I always say, I don't actually know, all conjecture. It really seems like a lot of the lyrics are trying to emulate Bukowski poetry in a way, or that he talks about it. He says it in the interview too, the Pusset interview, where he's like, there's always been one, it's Bukowski, and you can hear it in his songwriting or his lyric writing, at least in the early Misfits. And that's why that stuff comes out the way that it does. And it's friggin' phenomenal.
I could see that. That makes sense. I agree that is phenomenal. That's why I'm really happy. Not only did that Legacy came out, but obviously the Static Age, right? Because that's another thing that blew me away because it sounded so clear, and even hearing those like the little studio outtakes after, I was like, wow, that to me was surreal as well. I was like, son of a bitch. Again, another time where you'd like to, have a time machine, go through a black hole, bend time, and go back to that spot and just be a fucking fly on the wall.
Apparently he sat down. He sat down when he did his lyrics, from my understanding. He was not standing when he would sing those Static Age songs.
Oh, really? And I don't know why that.
I wouldn't know.
I don't know why that sounds familiar, but
yeah.
Usually, when I've seen Glenn in the studio, he's usually standing doing lyrics. But who knows? Because that sounds familiar for some reason.
Well, listen, I guess you would know better than me, but that's something that I had heard. But to go back to Earth AD for a minute, because you were talking about what to be a fly on the wall. When you hear it broken down in interviews, it's like this: they're in a sort of like a concrete room. Robo is in the middle, or Robo is like in the back. They make like an open square. Jerry is facing Doyle, and then Robo is faced out towards both of them. So the three of them are locked together, like in a square, and they tracked all that shit live right then and there. Probably, in my opinion, what do I think that might have been happening? They're like making eye contact for the changes, and just in perfect sync, like just perfect synchronology, where they can just, it's not like sloppy live. Like they're in this controlled environment. It's not hot. You don't have people yelling and screaming at you. You're not like covered in sweat. You're relaxed. You're able to just track this stuff, and they're just locked in super friggin' tight, and I would kill to hear what those mixes sounded like before they got remixed. As you said, what it was like when they were tracking it, it must have been unreal.
Yeah, I agree because you know they were probably stoked for two reasons at that time. One, they just fucking played one of their biggest shows ever. I mean, that was a big show for them, you know, huge. And then to work with someone that had worked with Black Flag, which they had a lot of admiration for Henry and what he was doing. So, you know, yeah, I think that must have been a really, man. And that was, you know, only the weird thing, Jeff, for me is like that was 83, right? I was so, I mean, and yeah, I'm into Danzig now and Misfits and everything, but I was so into it when I was a kid. And that was, and here I'm telling everyone, you got to listen to this, you know, Danzig. And that was 88. That was only, at that time, it was only 5 years ago. Now it's like, you know, what, so like 30, 40 years ago. But back then, I was so much, even more so into it and just so intense into everything. And it was, and it had, and I got, all I'm saying is that it had just happened. For the most part, I missed it by that much, you know. But, anyways, yeah, that would. I'm sure. To your point, they were just feeding off the adrenaline from the show. They, you know, they're whatever. Maybe they were making contact, but they were just all in sync and just feeding off of each other and saying, "Hey, not only did we fucking play a killer show at the Santa Monica Civic, but now we have new material that we're gonna record out here in California with Spot." You know, I might be way off, but you know, but just to me, it just seems like a very exciting opportunity for the band. And I'm sure Glenn in general was just tired. That's why he was, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Have I heard that?
Well, supposedly, we don't actually know. Supposedly, it's been said that he slept through the tracking of the album. And then laid his vocals down. Who friggin' knows, man? Because you want to know something? There are recordings. Here's the thing. There are also recordings where there's scratch vocals that are different than what, like, some of it's instrumental.
Like their AD demos?
Yeah. And it's like, I don't even know what it is. I don't know if it's actually demos or if it's like super rough tracks that just hadn't had the vocal overdubs yet. Like, you don't, like, who knows what the people like to say, oh, this is a demo. That's a demo. We don't fucking know. Like, for instance, a perfect example is look at what they did with Initium, like the track Initium. They recorded it on a 4-track cassette recorder in Steve Zing's room. And then they spliced it into the tape. You know what I mean? Onto multi-track tape. He had been working on Archangel. Do you think that he re-recorded Archangel on fresh tape? No, he probably used the same tape. That tape went through so many changes before it became the Archangel as we know it. In, I believe it was May of 1984, they had recorded what would be the proper version, and then they went back in July of 1984 to remix it because it was missing certain elements. They did so much work on that multi-tape. So what the thing that I always wonder is, I don't think it's Earth AD demos necessarily. It's just probably the recording at that time. It's like, look, we buy the tape, we lay down some tracks. Okay, we ran out of money. We'll hold on to the tracks. Let me get a mix down tape. Someone takes that here. Let me give it to a guy from the Necros. The guy from the Necros mixtapes. You know what? Who knows how this stuff gets out? But it's like, and then all of a sudden that gets labeled as what we were talking about, like how stuff gets mislabeled. Suddenly, like, oh yeah, these are the demos from Earth AD. Who fucking knows? Right. We don't know. We don't.
No, I agree. But we are talking about the same thing because that's another the other person had mentioned about the Night of Hate Night of Hate demos. That was another thing that blew my mind as a kid when I first heard that in the late 80s, those quote unquote Earth AD sessions. Yeah. And again, I think the thing that blew me away is like there was no effect on Glenn's vocals, so you could just hear him raw. And to me, it sounded like just a tight version of them playing live in a room. And that to me that blew me away. I just wish there was more versions of those songs with vocals, right? Because I think there's only like a couple, and the rest are all like instrumentals, you know. But
some
of them are
instrumentals, yeah.
But that shit to me is just that to me blows my mind as well. Listening to that,
but you hear. Well, I kind of like that some of it's instrumental because you get to hear the mechanics of the music without being distracted, or I should say wowed by the vocals. You're just sort of like the vocals can be put on the back burner for a second and we can listen to the churning of the whatever you want to call it, the music. Another tape that I learned the origin of when I was doing lots of interviews was as follows. Everybody knows it, calls it the pit demos. It's not pit demos. What it is, it's just the guys rehearsing and learning new songs. And it was recorded by the drummer of Adrenaline OD, Dave Scott. He was doing something for a school project. He brought in a recorder, and he just happened to be recording this thing, and we got to hear them working on like Queen Wasp and Die Die My Darling. Googie is still in the band, and it's like this incredible document because you get to hear these songs being formed, and it's lasted all this time on tape. Kind of crazy.
Agreed. Sounds surreal. That stuff, that the session that you mentioned is also, you know,
Yes.
blew me away. Obviously, all this stuff is unofficial and what have you, but we're all fans.
Right.
I'm not here to promote it, but just listening to it for the first time, I was like, wow.
Right. Precisely. We have another question from Ballad of the Broken. He says, Ballad, thank you for your continued support. Truly, there is a grove of bleached bones where lupines vomit. Oh, it's not a question. He's just saying, he's just reveling in Samhain. He's saying there's a grove of bleached bones where lupines vomit children's limbs, taking all their liberties with parts of the human anatomy. His phrasing and imagery during Samhain was truly poetic. Just wow. Let's take that again. There's a grove. It's a grove, like a field, right? Of bleached bones. So it's a field full of bones that have been bleached by the sun, because the sun is the thing that bleaches bones, where lupines vomit, lupines being werewolves, are vomiting children's limbs that then rot in the sun. And they are also taking all their liberties, meaning that they're free to do with as they wish parts of the human anatomy. I will leave that up to your imagination. But holy fuck.
Pretty insane, right? Yeah. Love it.
Oh my God. That is
Glenn could write that book of Cruel, right? Yeah. So
that is crazy. I always wonder. I can tell you, Glenn does not have a copy of the Night of the Living Dead video that I know of. John Voice of Doom is asking. The only person in possession of the Night of the Living Dead tape is Corey Rusk from the band The Necros. It's on U-Matic tape, and apparently the tape still plays. Will it ever see the light of day? Who knows? I would hope through the proper official channels if it did, and that is.
I'm sure it wouldn't. But I don't know if this is correct or not. But what I heard about that is that they shot it. They thought it was cool at the time. Then they went back to see it, and they're like, "Oh God, no! This is just too cheesy." And they just didn't use it. But I could be way wrong. And I didn't hear this from anyone in the band or anything. I just heard it from someone that I guess knew the Necros. They just thought, because here, like, didn't they have like their instruments? They're in their field. It's like,
yeah.
So sure, to us,
cemetery. They are in a cemetery,
or in a cemetery, and to us, obviously, just those shots, they almost look like photos. That looks fantastic. But what I heard is that they went back and looked at it and go, "Oh God, no."
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Listen,
I don't know if that's true or not, or
it's possible, man. I mean, I didn't know that there was the Skulls video is like insane, where like. Jerry's talking about what they were trying to shoot for a Skulls video, and apparently, and this was broken on the show. We don't know any other detail than what Chris, who was a staple, he's in the chat right now. Chris, who was a staple of the hardcore circuit, we were asking him questions. When the Misfits used to come up and play Boston, and get really involved in like the Boston hardcore scene, 82, 83, and he says he remembers that the Misfits might have been thinking about doing a video for London Dungeon. So, Could you imagine there being a video for London Dungeon? That would kind of blow my mind. So,
well, any video from them, I think would have blown my mind, just because, like, when I look at a video like the Cramps Garbage Man, I'm like, wow, it's very simple, but has just something very cool about it, because it's not like a forced horror look. It's just spooky and just like, I see that and I'm like, I want more, But anyways, I would love if that footage from Not a Living Dead actually came out one day, but I don't think so. I don't think any of that stuff will ever.
It's on pneumatic tape, and it's probably rotting. And who knows? Who knows if
Stay positive, Jeff. Stay positive.
I try. I really try. You would be surprised what is out there somewhere lurking underneath the floorboards. We can only imagine. Oh, look at that! Is that?
Does that come out clear? Does that come out clear?
That's Devilman?
Yeah, and just a quick shout out to Elizabeth Boras. I'm not sure she's on here. I'm probably not, but she painted this Super D for me back in, like, I don't know, I would say 20 years ago now.
Wow.
I love it. I love it.
Elizabeth is awesome, and I've been to her house in Maryland. More
like a museum.
More like a museum. And you want to know what was crazy? And I feel okay saying this. I turn my head, and there's a box, and resting on the top of the box is Doyle's choker collar from his first Misfits show with the spikes or whatever. And I'm like, holy shit. She had one of the cloth cool thing that you have, like with the hands covering the face. She had one of those, and it was like in green letters and stuff. I mean, she had crazy.
Oh, the poster, and I got those from Glenn. And so those posters, right? Any of those colored ones you see, those came directly from Glenn, and I don't think there's more than a handful of them.
She had a green one, and
I got that one for her. That was a great one. That was a
beautiful one. A beautiful. She's into horses. She likes to collect horses.
Yeah, she does.
That's her big.
She's
thing.
The best.
We wish you well. We wish you well, Elizabeth. Truly, and we hope that all is well. And yada yada yada.
Yes,
just want to say
for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, that was very nice of you, because she's a trooper, and
she is
a good friend.
A warrior. She's a warrior, and when I'll tell you something. When she shares about her life, I really do. She's such a power of example of, like, keep your head up, keep your chin up, and just go out there and do the best you can. And I just really, Elizabeth, truly awesome person, awesome human being. When I saw her at the New Jersey Misfits show, and she was walking around. I was like, Elizabeth, what's up? Good to see you. Yeah, it was great. It was cool. It was really cool to see her.
Yeah, she's absolutely great.
So we have gone way over the time that we were supposed to go. I mean,
fuck! You kept me on here 2.5 hours.
I distracted you, and we just kept talking and talking and talking. And I honestly could talk about this stuff forever, because it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. It's like so awesome, and I really want to thank you truly for doing this. Like, I think it's so great to hear like things from your POV. I don't think it's a POV. I mean, people hear it in your group, but like. I just think that, like, people don't, like, just understand all the mechanics of what you deal with and how you have to go through stuff. And, just that, people, not every fandom is so lucky to have, a space that's connected to the source. And it's just really awesome. So thank you for all that you do. Truly.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking some time out talking with me. At the end of the day, I think all of us are on the same team.
For sure.
We all want, we all like the legacy in certain ways or different ways, but it's all, we're all on the same team, and we just want it to keep going, So yeah, no problem. And thank you. And thank you for everyone who supports the Seventh House. Totally. It's been around since 1996. It seems like forever. I've seen fans come. I've seen fans go. It's interesting too, because I see fans go in phases. I see them 1 year, the next year they're gone, and then 2 years they reappear. But then there's also some that are just very, very loyal. Some of them like Liz, some of them like Leon Marcello, some of them like there's just so many. I wouldn't even know how to name them all, but and then a lot of the people that you work with regards to your group and so forth. Everyone is just really, really cool. And, as far as running the Seventh House, I'm never going to have a perfect answer. And I'm flexible, so anyone can always reach out to me, and I'm more than willing to listen. You know what I mean? If you're an ass, then of course I don't want to hear it, and I don't even want to deal with it. But as long as there's a dialogue and there's communication, because I've made decisions on that Seventh House board, and I'm like, okay, hey, so-and-so, I made this decision. I want to talk to you about it. And they don't even want to talk. It's like, okay, well then fuck off. Either I'm willing to talk with you and at least give you my POV. I don't have to be perfect, and I don't always have to have the right answers.
Right.
But I do. Hey, I just want the legacy to survive and keep going. I want more Danzig shows.
So
thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, it is. It's a giant undertaking, and we really do appreciate all that you do. Is there anything? Hold on. Well, last thing. Is there anything coming up that I don't know? Anything going on in the seventh house, or are you planning on doing any meetups? Because you guys do those seventh house meetups. By the way, guys, Devilman has a merch store. If you want to represent the seventh house, there's a link to his merch store down here. You can there are seventh house t-shirts, all sorts of cool designs made by seventh house members. Please check that out. And
I was going to say that. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, please. So check it out.
You don't have to buy anything, but I just want to say thank you to all the artists who have just contributed and just share their artwork. I think at the end of the day, even to this day, I put in more money into the seventh house, and I don't have to make money, but it's like, I just appreciate everyone's efforts, whether it's through artwork, whether it's through posting, whether it's just supporting. And it's not necessarily supporting me, because all I do, and my whole goal here is always just to share whatever I have. It's not to show off in any way. It's more like, hey, Danzig's playing this date, or these are some of the things you can expect. So it's just to share, and I just appreciate everyone's involvement, however you guys do it, whether you post, whether you just stand by the sidelines, whether you come up to me at shows. And will we be having meetups? Probably, who knows? But either way, it's like anytime we go to a show, there's almost a natural meetup as soon as we just start seeing each other, because it's for lack of a better term, it's like a family,
Yeah, no, totally. And it seems someone just bought a shirt, the Batman shirt was just
the Devilman Batman one?
Yeah, Undead 797 actually just bought a Devilman shirt today before the stream. Dope ass shirt, Batman homage.
It's a killer design put together by Christopher Lee, Christopher. Funny thing is, Christopher was one of the 4 folks in that hot car that when I flew out to Florida in 1995. We were with Liz, yeah. That was the first time I met Chris. So it's and I also recently got a Devilman bust from him. So he's a great guy, but yeah, just really cool that all the artists get to contribute with regards to those t-shirts and so forth. So
check it out, guys. Link is in the comments. Link to all the stuff is in the comments. And again, Devilman does do seventh house meetups. Sometimes there's like a meetup at a show. I don't know what the current logistics of that is, but sometimes that happens, and I hope that it happens again for you guys, and yada yada yada.
So one thing I will say about that, anyone going to PsychoFest, if you want to put together a meetup, because my time I don't always have the bandwidth, and not only that, I'm always worrying about my camera equipment and things of that nature. So if anyone wants to put together a meetup for for PsychoFest in Vegas, ideally would probably be at the venue or at Mandalay Bay would be ideal. Feel free to, and just let me know. But always willing to meet up with other demon MFs and just and just shoot the shit or just say hi or whatever. And yeah, thanks for all the support with regards to the seventh house. And if you haven't been there, just go to seventhhouse.com. You'll get to all those other locations. So.
Links down below, folks. Links down below. We have a wonderful way of saying goodbye here at my channel. I don't know why I do this, but it's just how we do it. We say peace and